A Navy SEAL finds a cop and her dog dying in the snow, but saving them pulls him into a war he thought he'd left behind. What starts as a rescue becomes a deadly hunt when he discovers the enemy isn't just outside his door, it's wearing a badge. This is a story of betrayal, courage, and three souls who refused to break when darkness came for them. Stay until the end and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels across the world. The wind didn't howl in Silver Ridge. It screamed. Eli Mercer had heard that scream before, in the mountains of Afghanistan, where nature and violence wore the same face. But that was a lifetime ago. That was before he came home to a son who needed stability more than stories, before he traded his rifle for a toolbox and his team for solitude. The cabin he'd built with his own hands sat 3 miles deep into the Colorado wilderness, far enough from town that the world's noise became a whisper, close enough that his boy could still catch the school bus when the roads allowed it. Tonight, the roads allowed nothing. Eli stood at the cabin window, watching the blizzard transform the forest into a wall of white chaos. The temperature had dropped 20 degrees in 2 hours, the kind of cold that killed, the kind that made bones brittle and turned breath into ice crystals before they left your lungs. His son Cameron was safe at his grandmother's house in town. Thank God for that. Eli had driven him down yesterday when the weather service started throwing around words like historic and life-threatening. He should have been relieved to ride out the storm alone. Should have poured himself a whiskey, thrown another log on the fire, and let the world bury itself outside his door. But Eli Mercer had never been good at sitting still when his instincts started whispering. And right now, they were screaming louder than the wind. He'd felt it an hour ago. That old familiar tension that used to settle between his shoulder blades 30 seconds before an ambush. The feeling that saved his life in Kandahar. The feeling that told him when a village was too quiet, when the shadows held more than darkness. His team used to joke that he had a sixth sense. His commanding officer called it pattern recognition honed by trauma. Eli called it survival. Something was wrong out there in the storm. He pulled on his winter gear. Layers of thermal clothing that still fit tight across the shoulders, despite 2 years of civilian life. The Sig Sauer P226 went into its holster, hidden beneath his jacket. Old habits. He grabbed his tactical flashlight, the heavy maglite that doubled as a club, and stepped into the screaming white. The cold hit him like a fist. 20 below zero, maybe colder, with the wind chill. His breath crystallized instantly. Snow pelted his face with stinging fury, each flake a tiny blade. Visibility was maybe 10 feet. The beam of his flashlight barely penetrated the swirling chaos. Most people would have turned back after 10 steps. Most people didn't have 8 years of SEAL training teaching them how to navigate hell in the dark. Eli moved into the forest, following nothing but instinct and that crawling sensation that something living was dying out here. The trees groaned under the weight of ice and wind. Branches cracked like rifle shots in the distance. The snow was already knee-deep and getting deeper with every minute. He swept his flashlight in methodical arcs, searching for... what? He didn't know. A hiker stupid enough to be out here? A hunter caught far from his truck? Or maybe nothing. Maybe he was just a burned-out veteran chasing ghosts in a blizzard because his brain couldn't tell the difference between vigilance and paranoia anymore. Then his light caught something dark against the white. A shape. Angular. Wrong. Eli pushed forward, his heart rate climbing. The shape became clearer. A vehicle. An SUV, black or maybe dark blue, impossible to tell under the coating of snow and ice. It was off the fire road, nose down in a drainage ditch, driver's door hanging open. Recent crash. The snow hadn't completely buried it yet. Hello? His shout was stolen by the wind. Anyone here? Nothing. Just the shriek of the storm. He approached the vehicle, every sense on high alert. The driver's door creaked in the wind. He swept his light inside. Empty. No blood on the airbag, no body in the seats, keys still in the ignition, a police radio hanging silent from the dash. His beam caught the emblem on the door, barely visible under the snow. Silver Ridge County Sheriff's Department. Eli's jaw tightened. A cop's vehicle. Abandoned. In the middle of nowhere during a killer storm. The wrongness intensified, crawling up his spine like spiders. He pulled back from the vehicle and scanned the area. Footprints. There. barely visible indentations already filling with fresh snow, leading away from the SUV and deeper into the forest. Not one set of prints. Two. One human-sized, one animal, large animal. The stride pattern was wrong for a person, even someone crawling. And there was something else in the snow near the prints. Dark droplets, already freezing. Blood. Damn it! Eli followed the trail. The wind tried to push him back. The cold bit through his layers. His face went numb. Ice formed in his beard, but he pushed forward, following those dying prints, because someone was out here. Someone hurt. And every second mattered in cold like this. The trail led him 200 yards into the forest, weaving between trees, staggering like whoever made it was barely staying upright. Then the prints stopped. Just ended. As if the person had been lifted into the air. Eli swept his light in a full circle. Nothing. Just trees and snow and darkness. Then he looked down. There. A mound of snow at the base of a massive pine tree. Too round, too still, but also too large to be a natural drift. His light caught a flash of dark fabric, blue fabric, and fur. Tan and black fur. No. The word came out as a cloud of frost. Eli dropped to his knees and started digging with his bare hands, throwing aside the snow in frantic scoops. His fingers hit something solid. An arm. He dug faster. A torso. A face. Pale. Blue-lipped. Female. 30s maybe. Dark hair frozen into icy strands. Eyes closed. Not moving. Hey! Hey! He patted her face, searching for signs of life. Cold skin. Too cold. Come on, stay with me. He pressed 2 fingers against her throat. There. Weak, but there. A pulse. Thready and slow, but alive. Then something else moved beneath the snow, something beside her. Eli dug again and uncovered a dog. German Shepherd, huge, wearing a tactical vest with K9 unit patches. The dog's eyes were open, watching him with exhausted intensity. Its muzzle was stained with frozen blood. One of its front legs was twisted at a wrong angle. Easy, boy. Easy. Eli kept his voice calm, his movements slow. The dog could bite, could panic, could make everything worse. But the shepherd just watched him with those intelligent brown eyes, trembling, clearly in pain, but somehow still alert, still protecting. That's when Eli noticed the woman's hands. They were bound behind her back with zip ties, thick industrial ones, the kind that didn't come off without tools. His blood went cold in a way that had nothing to do with the temperature. This wasn't a crash victim lost in the storm. This was something else, something deliberate. Someone had restrained this officer and left her here to die. Eli's mind shifted instantly into tactical mode. He pulled his knife from his belt and cut the zip ties with one clean motion. Her hands fell limp. He checked her over quickly. No obvious injuries except for hypothermia and some bruising on her wrists and face. But hypothermia would kill her just as dead as a bullet if he didn't move fast. The dog whined, trying to stand, collapsing back down. Its breathing was labored. I've got you both. Eli made his decision in a fraction of a second. He couldn't carry them both at once, not through this storm, but he couldn't leave either of them here. The woman first. She was closer to death. He'd come back for the dog. He scooped the woman into his arms. She was dead weight, maybe 120 soaking wet, but felt heavier with all the wet winter gear. He adjusted his grip and stood, already planning his route back. The dog barked, sharp, insistent, a warning bark. Eli turned. The shepherd was struggling to stand despite its broken leg, its eyes locked on something beyond Eli's shoulder. The dog's hackles were up, its teeth bared. Eli spun. His flashlight beam cut through the snow and illuminated a figure standing 20 feet away. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a heavy coat and ski mask, and holding a pistol. Time slowed. Eli's mind processed everything in microseconds. The gun was a Glock 19, standard police issue. The stance was trained but hesitant. The body language read surprise, not aggression. Not yet. Put her down. A man's voice. Young, nervous. Put her down and step back. Eli didn't move. Couldn't. The woman in his arms would die if he set her down. Minutes mattered. She needs medical attention. I said, put her down. The gun came up, aimed center mass. Behind Eli, the dog barked again, a vicious sound full of rage and pain. The figure took a step back, gun wavering between Eli and the shepherd. Control that dog or I'll shoot it. The dog has a broken leg and she's got hypothermia, Eli said, his voice deadly calm. The voice he used to use when talking down militants who had his team in their sights. Reasonable, non-threatening, but absolutely unwavering. I don't know who you are or what happened here, but this woman will be dead in 20 minutes if I don't get her warm. So you've got two choices. Shoot me and let her die, or get the hell out of my way. You don't understand? Then explain it after I save her life. Eli took a step forward. The gun tracked him. Stop. Eli took another step. Shoot me or move. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. The wind howled. Snow swirled between them. The woman in Eli's arms took a shallow, rasping breath. The dog growled, low and continuous. Then the figure lowered the gun, slightly. Who are you? The guy who's keeping her alive tonight. You? A pause, then, someone who's trying to do the same thing. The figure gestured with the gun. There's a cabin half a mile east. If you're taking her somewhere, make it there. I'll follow with the dog. How do I know you won't put a bullet in my back? If I wanted you dead, you'd already be bleeding. The figure's voice held a hint of something. Truth, maybe, or exhaustion. I'm one of the good guys, I think. I'm just not sure who the bad guys are anymore. Eli studied him for 2 seconds, read the body language, the weapon discipline, the tactical awareness. Law enforcement or military? Probably young. Definitely scared. Maybe telling the truth. My cabin is closer, Eli said. 300 yards northwest. Can you carry the dog? With a broken leg? He'll bite you if you try to lift him wrong. I'll come back. You'll never find this spot again in the storm. Eli's mind raced. The woman was dying. The dog was suffering. This stranger was an unknown variable, but people were counting on him to make the right call, even if they didn't know it. Fine, follow me. If you point that gun at me again, I'll assume you're hostile and respond accordingly. Clear? The figure hesitated, then nodded. Clear. Eli turned his back, a calculated risk, and started walking. Behind him, he heard the stranger moving to the dog, heard the shepherd's warning growl turn into a whimper, heard the man's voice, softer now. Easy, Titan. I got you, buddy. I got you. The journey back to the cabin took 15 minutes, but felt like hours. Eli's arms burned. His legs pushed through drifts that reached his thighs. The woman's breathing got shallower. Twice he stopped to check her pulse, and twice he felt it weakening. Behind him, the stranger struggled with the dog. Eli heard cursing, heard the shepherd whining, heard the sounds of someone trying desperately not to hurt an animal that was already in agony. When the cabin lights finally appeared through the trees, Eli felt a wave of relief so intense it almost buckled his knees. He kicked the door open and carried the woman straight to the fireplace. The heat hit them like a wall. He laid her on the rug in front of the hearth, already stripping off her wet outer layers. Hypothermia protocol. Get her dry. Get her warm. Get her stable. The stranger stumbled in 30 seconds later with the dog in his arms. Titan. The shepherd was panting, shaking, but still alert, still watching everything. Close the door, Eli barked. Then help me. The stranger obeyed, setting the dog down gently before moving to Eli's side. Up close, Eli could see ice crusted on the ski mask. The man pulled it off, revealing a face maybe 25 years old. Hispanic features, scared eyes. Definitely law enforcement. Eli could see the badge partially visible beneath his coat. I'm Deputy Rafael Santos, the kid said. Don't care right now. Eli was checking the woman's pupils. Sluggish response. Not good. Get towels from the bathroom, down the hall, second door, and grab the first aid kit from the cabinet above the sink. Santos ran. Eli kept working. He got the woman's wet jacket off, her duty belt, her boots. Her uniform was soaked through. Core temperature was too low. He could feel it. She needed aggressive rewarming or she'd slip into cardiac arrest. Santos returned with towels and the first aid kit. Is she going to make it? Get those blankets from the couch and start checking the dog. I need to know how bad that leg is. While Santos moved to tighten, Eli wrapped the woman in towels and blankets, then dragged her closer to the fire. He grabbed a space blanket from his emergency supplies and wrapped that around her too. Her lips were still blue. Her breathing was shallow and irregular. Come on, he muttered. Don't quit on me. He made a decision. Radical rewarming. Risky, but necessary. He grabbed pillows from the couch, propped her up slightly, and then did something that would have gotten him written up in a civilian hospital. He stripped off his own jacket and thermal shirt, then climbed behind her, wrapping his body around hers, sharing his heat directly. What are you doing? Santos looked alarmed. Saving her life. How's the dog? Santos turned his attention to Titan. The shepherd tolerated his examination, though every touch near the broken leg drew a whimper. Definitely broken. Left front leg. He's got some lacerations too. Looks like defensive wounds, like he was in a fight. Can you splint it? I'm not a vet. Neither am I, but that dog probably saved her life and I'm not watching him suffer. Eli kept the woman pulled against his chest, feeling his body heat slowly transferring to her. There's duct tape and a broom handle in the utility closet. Make it work. Santos hesitated, then nodded. While he worked on the dog, Eli focused on the woman. Her breathing was starting to even out. Color was slowly returning to her face. Her body temperature was rising against his. Good signs. She was a fighter. That's when he noticed the bruising on her face was worse than he'd first thought. Defensive injuries, split lip, swelling around her left eye. Someone had beaten her before leaving her in the snow. His jaw tightened. Old instincts stirred. Protective instincts. Violent instincts. Deputy, Eli said quietly, tell me what happened out there. Santos was wrapping Titan's leg, his hands shaking slightly. I don't know all of it. I just know someone tried to kill Detective Mara Vance tonight, and they're probably still looking for her. Detective. So she was more than just a patrol officer. Who's trying to kill her? Santos finished the splint and sat back. Titan licked his hand once, a gesture of trust. The deputy's voice was barely a whisper. I think it might be our own department. Eli went very still. Explain. I can't. Not without proof. Not without... Santos stopped. His eyes went to Mara. Is she going to wake up? Eventually, if we're lucky. Eli adjusted the blankets around her. Her eyelids were flickering. REM sleep, maybe, or her body fighting back to consciousness. But you're going to start talking anyway, because I just risked my life for someone I don't know, and I need to understand what war I just walked into. Santos looked at him for a long moment, reading him, measuring him. Then, you're military, I can tell. Was? Navy? What does that have to do with anything? It means you understand operational security. It means... Santos ran a hand through his wet hair. It means I'm going to trust you, because I don't have a choice. Detective Vance has been undercover for 8 months. She infiltrated a trafficking ring operating through Silver Ridge County. Drugs, weapons, maybe people. Big operation, connected to someone with power. She was getting close to identifying the top players. Then tonight, she was supposed to meet her handler, Deputy Director Marcus Sterling, her boss. Instead, someone grabbed her. Yeah, Santos's voice cracked. I found her SUV on the fire road, crashed, empty. I tracked her into the woods and found you, and them. But you pointed a gun at me, because I didn't know if you were with them or not. Santos met his eyes. There's a leak in the department. Has to be. Someone high up. Someone who knew about Vance's investigation. That's the only way they could have gotten to her. So yeah, when I see a stranger in the woods with an unconscious detective, I draw my weapon. Wouldn't you? Eli would have done exactly the same thing. Who knows you're out here? Nobody. I left my radio in my truck, told dispatch I was heading home before the storm got worse. Santos's face darkened. If I'd called it in, if they're monitoring radio traffic, I could have led them right to us. So we're on our own. For now. Santos looked at Mara again. When she wakes up, she'll know what to do. She's the smartest cop I've ever met. If anyone can figure out who's dirty, it's her. Eli felt the woman in his arms take a deeper breath. Her body was warming steadily now, core temperature rising. She was going to make it. Probably. How do you know Detective Vance? Eli asked. She trained me when I joined the department 2 years ago. Taught me everything about real police work. How to read a scene. How to trust your gut. How to stay alive when the job gets dirty. Santos's voice held real affection, loyalty. She's a good cop. Maybe the only good cop left in this whole damn county. Before Eli could respond, Titan raised his head and growled. Not at them, at the door. Both men froze. Outside, barely audible over the storm, came the sound of an engine, a vehicle, close, getting closer. Santos's face went white. How did they find us? Eli's mind raced. Does your truck have GPS? Department issued, yeah. They tracked you. Eli carefully extracted himself from Mara and grabbed his pistol from where he'd set it aside. How many rounds do you have? Santos checked his Glock. 15 plus 1. Magazine? 2 more. 48 total. The engine sound grew louder, then it stopped. Close. Maybe 100 yards out. Eli moved to the window and peered through a gap in the curtains. Headlights, 2 vehicles, trucks, heavy duty. They'd parked at the tree line, just visible through the blowing snow. Doors opened, figures emerged. 4, no, 5, all armed. We've got company, Eli said quietly. 5 hostiles, rifles. Santos moved beside him, looking out. His breath caught. That's a sheriff's department truck. Friends of yours? I don't recognize them, but they're wearing our uniforms. Santos's voice shook. Jesus, it's really happening. The department is compromised. Eli's tactical mind shifted into gear. 5 armed men, 2 defensive positions, limited ammunition, no backup, civilians to protect. Mara unconscious, the dog injured. The math wasn't good, but Eli had been in worse situations. Fallujah, Helmand province, a village in Syria where his team was outnumbered 10-1. He'd survived all of it, not through superior firepower, but through superior thinking. Here's what we're going to do, Eli said. You take Mara into the back bedroom, lock the door, push the dresser against it. Stay with her and the dog. Don't come out unless I call for you. What are you going to do? Eli checked his Sig Sauer. 15 rounds. Not enough. But he had other tools. This was his cabin, his territory. He knew every sight line, every approach, every angle. I'm going to remind them why they don't send 5 men to do a 10-man job. He looked at Santos. But if I go down, you protect her. Understand? Whatever it takes. She stays alive. She's the only one who knows the truth. Santos swallowed hard, then nodded. I understand. Good. Move. Now. Santos went to Mara, carefully lifting her. She stirred slightly, murmuring something incoherent. Titan struggled to stand, following his handler instinctively despite his broken leg. Santos carried Mara down the hall, the shepherd limping after them. Eli heard a door close, a lock click. Then he was alone. Outside, the 5 men were moving toward the cabin. Tactical formation, professional. These weren't thugs. They were trained. Eli killed the lights and let his eyes adjust to the darkness. The fire still burned, casting flickering shadows. He moved through the cabin like a ghost, setting up. He grabbed the shotgun from above the mantel, Remington 870, loaded with buckshot, set it beside the couch. He retrieved the AR-15 from the locked cabinet in his bedroom, the rifle he swore he'd never need again. Loaded a 30-round magazine, set it by the window. Then he started preparing surprises. The cabin had been built by a paranoid veteran who understood that sometimes the world comes for you. There were defensive measures Eli had installed and hoped never to use. Pressure plates near the doors, tripwires in the approaches. Nothing lethal. He wasn't trying to kill mailmen, but enough to slow down intruders. He activated them now. Outside, the 5 men reached the edge of the clearing. They split up. 2 toward the front. 2 circling to the back. 1 staying at the tree line as overwatch. Eli watched from the darkness, controlling his breathing. His heart rate was elevated but steady. Not fear. Anticipation. This was familiar territory. This was where his training lived. The two men approaching the front door were cautious. They communicated with hand signals. One covered while the other advanced to the porch steps. Standard dynamic entry protocol. The first man stepped on the porch and triggered the pressure plate. A homemade flashbang, not military grade, just a modified firecracker wrapped in foil, went off with a bang that echoed through the night. The man shouted and stumbled backward, momentarily disoriented. His partner opened fire immediately, putting 3 rounds through the front door. Eli was already moving, staying low, using the couch as cover. He came up beside the window and put 2 rounds through the glass, aiming for center mass on the shooter. The man went down. The other man returned fire, spraying bullets wildly. Wood splintered, glass shattered, but Eli was already moving to a different position, using the cabin's layout to his advantage. Outside, someone was shouting orders. The overwatch was repositioning. The 2 men at the back were trying to breach. Eli heard the back door splinter as they kicked it in, heard their footsteps in his kitchen. 2 men, moving fast. He let them get 3 steps into the cabin before he triggered the second surprise. The tripwire pulled a cabinet door open, sending a cascade of pots and pans crashing down. Noise and chaos. The 2 men spun toward the sound, momentarily distracted. Eli came around the corner with the shotgun and fired once. The buckshot caught the first man in the legs. He went down screaming. The second man tried to bring his rifle around, but Eli was faster. A second blast from the shotgun and the man was on the ground. Non-lethal shots. Disable. Don't kill. They'd live. But they were out of the fight. 3 down, 2 to go, plus the overwatch. Eli dropped the shotgun and grabbed the AR-15, moved back to the front of the cabin. His ears were ringing from the gunfire. His mouth was dry. Adrenaline sang in his veins, that old familiar cocktail of chemicals that kept you alive when death was breathing down your neck. The remaining 2 men had fallen back to cover. They were shouting to each other, reorganizing. One of them was on a radio, calling for backup maybe. Eli needed to end this fast. He moved to the front door, staying low, and peered through the bullet holes. One man was crouched behind a tree, 20 yards out. The other was... Where? Eli scanned. There. Flanking right, trying to get an angle on the front window. The overwatch was still in the tree line, rifle up, covering his men. Eli made a decision. He grabbed a burning log from the fireplace with the poker, opened the front door a crack, and threw the log out into the snow. It hissed and steamed, creating a cloud of vapor. Then he went out the window. The cold hit him like a hammer. He'd forgotten his jacket, was still shirtless from warming Mara. No time to think about it. He rolled into the snow, came up in a crouch, and moved fast toward the tree line. The storm provided cover. The darkness was his ally. The man flanking right never saw him coming. Eli hit him from behind, hard and fast, disarmed him, put him down with a chokehold that left him unconscious but breathing. 4 down. The last man at the tree cover heard the scuffle and spun. His rifle came up. Eli dove behind a woodpile as rounds chewed into the logs. Splinters exploded. He came up on the other side and fired 3 rounds from the AR-15. Controlled bursts, center mass. The man dropped. 5 down. The overwatch was still out there. Eli couldn't see him through the storm and darkness, but he knew the man could see the muzzle flash from his rifle, knew a bullet was coming. He rolled left just as a rifle round cracked past his head and buried itself in the woodpile. The overwatch was good, patient, disciplined, probably military trained like Eli. This was a sniper duel now. And Eli was at a disadvantage. The overwatch had a scope, a stable position, and knowledge of Eli's last location. But Eli had something better. He had rage. These men had beaten a woman, had left her to die in the snow, had tried to kill a cop for doing her job. And now they'd brought violence to his home, to the place where his son slept, to the sanctuary he'd built to escape this exact kind of darkness. He'd left the war behind. But the war had followed him home. So be it. Eli moved through the forest like a ghost, using every bit of cover, every shadow. He'd done this 100 times in worse conditions. The cold didn't matter anymore. The shaking in his hands was adrenaline, not fear. He circled wide, flanking the overwatch position, moving toward where he'd seen the muzzle flash. It took him 3 minutes to close the distance. 3 minutes of moving between trees, staying low, controlling his breathing despite the freezing air burning his lungs. 3 minutes of being the predator instead of the prey. He found the Overwatch lying prone behind a fallen log, rifle scope trained on the cabin. The man was good. He hadn't moved, hadn't given away his position again. He was waiting for Eli to make a mistake. Eli came up behind him silently and pressed the barrel of the AR-15 against the back of his head. "Don't move." The man froze. "Drop the rifle." Slowly. The man complied, setting his weapon in the snow. "Hands behind your head." He obeyed. Eli kicked the rifle away and kept his own weapon trained. "Who sent you?" Silence. "I asked you a question." "Go to hell." Eli's finger tightened on the trigger. It would be easy. So easy. 1 round. Problem solved. This man had tried to kill him, tried to kill an unconscious woman. In war, this would be justified, clean, necessary. But Eli wasn't in war anymore, and this man was a prisoner, not a combatant. He lowered the rifle slightly. "You're going to answer my questions, or I'm going to let Detective Vance ask them when she wakes up. And trust me, she's going to be a lot less patient than I am." The man said nothing. "Fine. We'll do this the hard way." Eli zip-tied the man's hands behind his back. Poetic justice, using restraints from his own tactical vest. Then he hauled him to his feet and marched him back toward the cabin. The scene looked like a battlefield. 5 men down. Bullet holes in the walls, blood in the snow. Eli checked each man quickly. 2 unconscious, 2 injured but stable. 1 dead, the man he'd shot from the window. Eli felt a flicker of something. Not quite regret, not quite satisfaction. Just acknowledgement. He'd killed before. Would probably kill again. But it never got easier. He dragged the Overwatch into the cabin, threw him on the floor, and locked the door. Then he went to the back bedroom and knocked. "Santos, it's over. They're down." The door unlocked. Santos emerged, gun drawn, eyes wide.
"All of them? All of them?"
Santos looked at Eli, shirtless, covered in snow, holding an AR-15 like it was an extension of his body. "Who the hell are you?"
"Someone who's had a very bad night."
Eli set the rifle down and grabbed a towel, wiping snow and sweat from his face. His body was starting to shake now that the adrenaline was fading. The cold was catching up. "How's Mara?" "Still unconscious, but warmer. Her pulse is stronger." "Good." Eli grabbed his thermal shirt from the floor and pulled it on. "We need to secure the prisoners and figure out what comes next." "What comes next is we call the state police." "Can't. If your department is compromised, we don't know how far it goes. We call this in. We might just be inviting more killers to the party." Santos's face fell. "Then what do we do?" Eli looked at the bound man on the floor, then at the hallway where Mara was fighting her way back to consciousness. "We wait for her to wake up, and then we find out exactly who's trying to kill her and why." Santos nodded slowly. "And if they send more men?" Eli's voice was cold. "Certain. Then I'll do what I always do. I'll make sure they regret it." For the next hour they worked. Santos secured the other prisoners in the shed outside under lock and key. Eli patched up the 2 injured men. He wasn't going to let them die, but he wasn't going to make them comfortable either. He barricaded the doors, reloaded his weapons, set up watch positions. The storm continued to rage outside, burying the world in white. Inside, Mara Vance finally opened her eyes. Eli was sitting by the fire when it happened. He'd put on more layers, gotten his body temperature back to normal. Santos was standing guard at the window. Titan was lying beside the couch, his broken leg splinted, watching everything with those alert shepherd eyes. Mara's eyes fluttered, opened. She stared at the ceiling for a moment, confused. Then awareness flooded back and she bolted upright with a gasp. "Titan, where's—" "He's right here." Eli kept his voice calm. "He's okay. Broken leg, but he'll heal." She spun toward him, her hand instinctively going for a weapon that wasn't there. Her eyes were sharp despite the ordeal. Cop eyes, evaluating, assessing, calculating threat levels. "Who are you?" Her voice was hoarse but steady. "Eli Mercer. This is my cabin. You were dying in the snow. I brought you here." Where's Santos?" The deputy stepped forward. I'm here, detective. You're safe. Mara's eyes went from Eli to Santos to the boarded-up windows, the bullet holes, the blood on the floor. What happened? Santos filled her in quickly. The crash, the rescue, the attack, Eli's defense, the prisoners now locked in the shed. When he finished, Mara was silent for a long moment. She looked at Eli with something like awe. You took down 5 armed men by yourself? 6 if you count the overwatch. And it wasn't by myself. Santos helped. I stayed in the back room with you, Santos protested, which is exactly what I told you to do. Following orders under fire is helping. Eli leaned forward. Detective, we need to know what's going on, who tried to kill you, and why. Mara's face hardened. She reached down and scratched Titan behind the ears. The dog leaned into her touch, tail wagging slightly despite his injury. Then she looked up at Eli and Santos with eyes that had seen too much. How much do you know about the mountain vipers? She asked quietly. Santos frowned. Motorcycle gang, drugs and guns. They've been operating in the county for a few years. Not a gang, Mara said. A network, trafficking organization. They move product through 6 states. Crystal meth, heroin, fentanyl, weapons, and, she paused, people, women and children, for labor and worse. Eli felt his jaw tighten. You're telling me there's a human trafficking ring operating in Silver Ridge County? Operating through it. The county is a waypoint, remote enough to be safe, connected enough to move product east and west. Mara's voice was bitter. I've been undercover for 8 months. I infiltrated their distribution network, got close to some mid-level operators, started mapping their supply chains, and I discovered something. What? They have protection from the top. Someone in law enforcement is keeping them safe, tipping them off to investigations, making evidence disappear, making witnesses disappear. She looked at Santos. That's why I couldn't tell anyone what I was doing, not even you, because I couldn't trust the department. Santos looked like he'd been punched. The whole department. I don't know, but someone high up, someone with access to case files, radio traffic, personnel files. Mara rubbed her face. I was getting close. I identified one of the Viper's safe houses, got photos of their leadership. I was supposed to hand everything over to Deputy Director Sterling tonight. He's been my handler for the whole operation, the only person in the department who knew what I was doing. Eli saw where this was going. But Sterling's dirty. I don't know, but someone knew I was coming to that meeting. Someone grabbed me from the parking lot before I could make contact. Beat me, tied me up, threw me in my own vehicle, and drove me into the woods. Her hand went to her throat. They were going to make it look like I crashed in the storm. Just another officer caught out in bad weather. Tragic accident. But Titan, Mara smiled, a fierce expression. Titan doesn't let anyone hurt his handler. He fought them, tore one man's arm open. That's how he broke his leg. One of them hit him with a tire iron. But he bought me enough time to get away when they stopped to deal with him. I ran, didn't get far. Hypothermia was setting in. I remember finding that tree. I remember thinking this was it. This was how I died. Then I found you, Eli said. Then you found me. She looked at him with real gratitude. And apparently fought off an entire hit squad to keep me alive. Why? Because that's what you do when someone's dying. Eli said it simply, like it was obvious, because to him, it was. Mara studied him for a long moment. You're military. Was. SEAL? How'd you guess? The way you move, the way you think, the way you just took down 6 armed men like it was a training exercise. She shook her head slowly. What are you doing in Silver Ridge County, Eli Mercer? Trying to live quietly, raise my son, be normal. He gestured at the bullet-riddled cabin. Not working out great so far. Santos spoke up. Detective, what do we do now? If Sterling's compromised, we can't trust anyone at the department, but we need backup. We need... A sound interrupted him. All 3 of them froze. Titan's head came up, ears forward. Vehicle engines. Multiple. Coming up the road. Eli moved to the window. Lights. A lot of them. 5 vehicles at least, moving slowly through the storm. We've got more company, he he said quietly. Mara tried to stand. Her legs almost gave out. Santos caught her. How many? She asked. Enough. Eli was already calculating. More prisoners meant more variables. More guns meant higher risk. He looked at Mara. These friends of yours? If they were friends, they'd be calling out on a megaphone, announcing themselves. Mara's voice was grim. They're coming quiet. That means they're here to finish the job. Eli turned to Santos. Get her and Titan into the basement. There's a storm cellar beneath the kitchen, reinforced door. You can hold out there if they breach. What about you? I'm going to buy you time. Eli grabbed the AR-15 again, checked the magazine. 23 rounds left. Not enough. Never enough. You can't fight them all, Mara said. Watch me. Eli... She grabbed his arm. Her grip was weak but urgent. These people don't play. They'll kill you. They'll burn this cabin down with all of us inside if they have to. Then I guess I better not let them. He pulled free gently. I spent 8 years protecting people from bad guys. The location changed. The uniforms changed. But the job's still the same. Now move, both of you. Santos started to protest, but Mara shook her head. He's right. We're liabilities right now. We go to the cellar. We let him do what he does. She looked at Eli. But we're coming back up. You hear me? When you need us, we're coming. Fair enough. Eli headed for the door. Welcome to my cabin, detective. Sorry about the hospitality. Then he stepped out into the storm, into the darkness, into the fight that was coming for him whether he wanted it or not. Because this was who he was, who he'd always been. A warrior who couldn't walk away when evil came knocking. The blizzard swallowed him whole, and somewhere in that white darkness, more killers were coming. But Eli Mercer was ready for them. He'd saved 2 lives tonight. Now he had to save them again. And maybe, in the process, he'd save a whole county from the rot that had infected it. The war had found him, so he'd fight it, the only way he knew how, with everything he had, until they were safe, or until he was dead. Those were the only 2 options. And Eli Mercer had never been good at dying. The vehicles stopped 100 yards from the cabin, their headlights cutting through the blizzard like searchlights hunting for prey. Eli counted 6 trucks, maybe 7, hard to tell through the swirling white. Doors opened and figures emerged, dark silhouettes against the snow. Too many to count, too many to fight, but he'd start with what he could control. Eli circled wide through the forest, using the storm as cover, moving toward the lead vehicle. His breath came in controlled bursts, crystallizing in the frigid air. Every step was calculated, every movement silent. This was SEAL training at its purest. Become the night, become the threat they never see coming. He reached the first truck and dropped low beside it. Through the window, he could see the interior was empty, engines still running, exhaust pumping white clouds into the darkness. Radio chatter crackled from the dashboard. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Military precision, coordinated movement. These weren't desperate criminals. This was an organized force. Eli moved between vehicles, staying in the shadows, counting bodies. 15 men at least, all armed, all moving toward the cabin in a tactical formation that spoke of training and discipline. They were setting up a perimeter, establishing fields of fire, preparing for a siege. His mind raced through options. He couldn't take 15 men in open combat. Even with surprise, even with superior skill, the numbers were impossible. He needed to change the equation, needed to make them uncertain, needed to buy time for Mara and Santos to figure out their next move. So he'd give them chaos. Eli pulled the knife from his belt and punctured the rear tire of the lead truck. The hiss of escaping air was swallowed by the wind. He moved to the next vehicle, did the same, then the next. By the time he'd disabled 4 trucks, someone noticed. We've got a problem. Tires are slashed. Check the perimeter. Someone's out here. Flashlight beams swept through the darkness. Eli was already moving, ghosting back toward the tree line. He found a position behind a fallen log, rifle up, watching the confusion spread through their ranks. A figure in a heavy coat stepped forward, clearly in command. Discipline. Hold your positions. This is a distraction. The voice was familiar. Eli's blood went cold. Lieutenant Marcus Sterling, Mara's handler, the man she'd trusted with her life. Sterling raised a megaphone. Eli Mercer, I know you're out there. I know you can hear me. We don't want to hurt you. We just want Detective Vance. She's a fugitive. She's mentally unstable. She's killed police officers. Send her out, and this ends peacefully. Eli didn't respond, didn't move. Let Sterling talk into the void. You're a veteran, Mercer. You understand duty. You understand following orders. Detective Vance has gone rogue. She's compromised an investigation. She's put lives at risk. We need to bring her in before anyone else gets hurt. Still, Eli said nothing. His finger rested beside the trigger guard, ready, but not committed. Sterling lowered the megaphone and turned to his men. His voice carried on the wind. Burn it. If they won't come out, we burn them out. Two men moved forward with containers. Gasoline. They were going to torch the cabin with everyone inside. Eli made his decision. The rifle shot echoed through the storm. The first container exploded in the man's hands, gasoline erupting into flame. The man screamed and dropped the burning can, rolling in the snow to extinguish himself. The second man dove for cover, his own container abandoned. Sniper! Someone shouted. The formation scattered. Men took cover behind vehicles, behind trees. Return fire erupted, bullets tearing through the forest in random patterns, trying to suppress a threat they couldn't see. Eli was already moving to a new position. He fired twice more, carefully placed shots that hit dirt near their feet, close enough to scare but not kill. He wasn't trying to win this fight. Just delay it. Sterling's voice cut through the chaos. Suppressing fire. Alpha team, flank left. Bravo, flank right. Charlie, prepare for breach. They were adapting, learning. Sterling was a good commander, even if he was a traitor. Eli fell back toward the cabin, laying down covering fire, making them pay for every yard of ground. His magazine ran dry. He dropped it, loaded a fresh one. 12 rounds left. Then he'd be down to his pistol. The cabin door flew open. Santos was there, waving frantically. Inside, now! Eli sprinted the last 20 yards and dove through the door. Santos slammed it behind him and threw the bolt. Bullets immediately peppered the exterior walls, a sustained barrage that turned the cabin into a shooting gallery. I thought I told you to stay in the cellar, Eli said, breathing hard. Mara said we're stronger together. Santos was at the window, returning fire with his Glock. She's right. You can't hold them alone. Where is she? Still downstairs, setting up a fallback position in case they breach. Santos ducked as bullets shattered the window above him. How many are out there? Too many. The firing stopped suddenly. The silence was somehow worse than the noise. Sterling's voice came again through the megaphone. Last chance, Mercer. Send out Vance or we're coming in. And when we do, everyone dies, including you, including that deputy who's dumb enough to help you. Your choice. Their blood on your hands or hers. Eli moved to the basement door and called down. Mara, your handler wants to talk terms. Her voice drifted up from below. Sterling's here? Leading the assault personally. There was a pause. Then footsteps on the stairs. Mara emerged, still unsteady but moving under her own power. Her face was pale but her eyes were sharp. Titan limped up beside her, protective despite his injury. If Sterling's here, she said quietly, then he's definitely dirty. He wouldn't risk exposing himself unless he was sure I wouldn't survive to talk. Santos looked between them. So what do we do? We can't fight them all, Mara said. But we can't surrender either. The moment Sterling has me, I'm dead. You're all dead. Then we need a third option. Eli's mind was working through scenarios, discarding failures, looking for the narrow path to survival. Is there any law enforcement you can trust? Anyone outside the county? Mara hesitated, then nodded slowly. My brother, Corbin. He's DEA, based in Denver. If I could contact him, they'll be monitoring cell signals. Not just cell. Mara moved to the window, peering out at the storm. There's a ranger station 3 miles north, Forest Service. They have a satellite uplink. If we could reach it, we could call for help without anyone intercepting. 3 miles in a blizzard with a hit squad on our tail, Santos said. That's suicide. No. Eli was seeing it now. The possibility. The risk. That's misdirection. They think we're trapped here. They're setting up for a siege, but if we slip out before they tighten the noose, we could make it." "How?" Mara asked. "They've got us surrounded." "Not completely. They came from the south, set up to the south and east. The north approach is still open. They're assuming we won't run deeper into the wilderness during a blizzard. We use that assumption against them." Santos was shaking his head. "Even if we make it out 3 miles in this cold, with Detective Vance still recovering from hypothermia—" "I can make it," Mara interrupted. Her voice was steel. "I've come too far to quit now." Eli studied her. She was tough, he'd give her that, but toughness only went so far when your core temperature had been in the danger zone an hour ago. "Can you run?" "I can do whatever I have to do." "Then we move. Now, before they commit to the breach." Eli turned to Santos. "Get her winter gear, everything warm we have. I'll create a diversion." "What kind of diversion?" "The kind that makes them think we're still here." Eli moved through the cabin, gathering supplies. He grabbed pillows, arranged them on the couch near the window, added a jacket draped over the back. From a distance, in the dark, it would look like someone sitting there. He positioned a lamp to cast shadows. It wouldn't fool anyone for long, but it might buy them minutes. While Santos helped Mara into thermal layers and a heavy coat, Eli went to the basement and returned with a jerry can of gasoline and a camping stove. He set the stove's timer for 15 minutes, positioned it near the gasoline can in the center of the room. Santos saw what he was doing and his eyes went wide. "You're going to blow up your own cabin?" "I'm going to make them think we died in here. Big explosion, lots of fire. They'll assume we got caught in the crossfire and something ignited." Eli checked his watch. "Gives us a 15-minute head start before they realize it's a fake and come looking." "This is your home." "It's wooden nails. I can rebuild wooden nails." Eli looked at him steadily. "I can't rebuild people." Mara appeared from the back room, bundled in winter gear, Titan beside her wearing a makeshift coat Santos had fashioned from a blanket. She looked at the improvised bomb, then at Eli. "You're full of surprises, Mercer." "Navy taught me to improvise." He handed her a pistol, one of the weapons he'd taken from the earlier attackers. "You know how to use this?" "I'm a detective. Of course I know how to use it." "Good, because if we get separated out there, you'll need it." He turned to Santos. "You take point. I'll bring up the rear. Mara stays between us. We move fast but quiet. If shooting starts, you keep her moving no matter what. Understood?" Santos nodded. "Understood." "And Titan?" Mara's hand went to her dog's head. "He stays with me. Broken leg or not, he's coming." "Fair enough." Eli moved to the back window, the one facing north. "This is our exit. Once we're out, stay low, use the terrain, and don't stop moving until we're clear of their perimeter." He opened the window carefully, cold air rushing in. The storm was still raging, visibility maybe 20 feet. That would help them. Outside, he could hear Sterling's men moving into position, preparing for their assault. They'd be coming through the doors any second. "Go," Eli whispered. Santos went first, climbing through the window and dropping into the snow. Mara followed, moving slower but managing. Titan jumped down beside her with a yelp of pain when he landed wrong on his splinted leg. Eli came last, closing the window behind them to maintain the illusion. They moved into the trees, single file, Santos leading them north. The cold was brutal. Within seconds, Eli's face was numb again. He could hear Mara's breathing behind him, labored but steady. The dog was limping badly but keeping pace, driven by that fierce loyalty that made K9 units so effective. Behind them, Sterling's voice boomed through the megaphone. "This is your final warning. We're coming in. 3, 2, 1. The sound of splintering wood carried through the storm. They were breaching. Eli pictured his cabin filling with armed men, searching rooms, finding no one, maybe glimpsing those pillows arranged on the couch and thinking they had targets. The group pushed deeper into the forest. 50 yards. 100. 200. The cabin lights were barely visible now through the trees and snow. Eli kept checking their back trail, looking for pursuit. Nothing yet. Sterling's men were still inside, still searching. Then the explosion came. The camping stove had ignited the gasoline right on schedule. The blast lit up the night, a ball of orange flame that punched through the cabin's roof and sent debris flying. Secondary explosions followed as ammunition cooked off in the heat. The structure collapsed in on itself, flames consuming everything. Eli felt a pang watching his home burn. 2 years of work. His son's bedroom. The fireplace where they'd read stories on winter nights. All of it gone. But Cameron was safe in town, and these 3 people were alive. That's what mattered. "Keep moving," he said quietly. "They'll figure out we weren't in there soon enough." They pushed on through the storm. The forest was dense here, pines heavy with snow, creating a maze of white and shadow. Navigation was nearly impossible. Eli relied on his internal compass, the same skill that had kept him alive in the deserts and mountains of the Middle East. North. They needed to keep heading north. After 20 minutes of hard hiking, Mara stumbled. Santos caught her before she fell. "Detective?" "I'm fine," but her voice was weak. The exertion was too much too soon after nearly dying from hypothermia. Her body was running on fumes. "We need to rest," Santos said. "Can't stop," Eli replied. "They're coming, I guarantee it." "She can barely stand." Eli moved to Mara's other side. Between them, he and Santos supported her weight. "Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. The ranger station can't be more than 2 miles now." "How do you know we're even going the right direction?" "Because I know these woods. I've hiked every trail within 10 miles of my cabin." Eli adjusted his grip on Mara. "Trust me." They continued like that, half carrying Mara, Titan limping alongside, Santos and Eli taking turns bearing most of her weight. The storm showed no signs of letting up. If anything, it was getting worse. Wind gusts strong enough to knock them off balance. Snow so thick it was like wading through a white ocean. Then Eli heard it. Behind them, voices, shouts. The pursuers had realized the deception and were coming. "They're on our trail," he said. Santos's face went pale in the darkness. "How far back?" "Hard to say, maybe 10 minutes. We can't outrun them. Not carrying her." Mara pulled away from them, standing on her own through sheer force of will. "Then don't carry me. I'll keep pace." "Mara, I didn't survive being left to die in the snow just to slow you down now." She looked at both of them with fierce determination. "I'm walking, on my own. Let's move." There was no point arguing. They pressed on, faster now, urgency driving them forward. The voices behind them were getting closer. Flashlight beams swept through the trees. The hunters had become very close to their prey. Eli's mind raced through defensive options. He could set an ambush, try to slow them down, but that meant splitting up, and splitting up meant leaving Mara vulnerable. He could try to lead the pursuit away, create a false trail. But in this storm, he might never find them again. No good options, just bad choices and worse choices. Then Santos stopped abruptly. "Light! I see light ahead!" Eli looked. There. Through the trees, a faint glow. Artificial light. Structure. "That's the ranger station," Mara said, hope creeping into her voice. "That has to be it." They covered the last quarter mile at a near run, adrenaline overriding exhaustion. The ranger station materialized out of the storm. A small log building with a green Forest Service sign barely visible under accumulated snow. Lights were on inside. Someone was home. They reached the door and Santos pounded on it. "Forest Service, we need help." No answer. He pounded again. "Please, we're police officers. We need assistance." The door opened a crack. A woman peered out, maybe 40, wearing a ranger uniform, her hand resting on a holstered weapon. "Who are you?" "Deputy Rafael Santos, Silver Ridge Sheriff's Department. This is Detective Mara Vance. We're being pursued by hostile forces. We need to use your satellite uplink." The ranger's eyes narrowed. "Pursued by whom?" "Corrupt officers from our own department." Mara stepped forward, her badge in hand. "Please, people's lives are at stake. We need to call for federal backup." The ranger studied them for a long moment. 3 desperate people, 1 injured dog, all of them half frozen and clearly terrified. Then she stepped back and opened the door wide. "Get inside, quickly!" They stumbled into the warmth. The ranger locked the door behind them and immediately moved to a window, peering out into the storm. "How many are following you?" 15, maybe more. Eli was already scanning the building, cataloging exits, defensive positions, weapons. Old habits. Jesus. The ranger turned to face them. She was lean and weathered, with the competent air of someone who'd spent years surviving in the wilderness. "I'm Brenna Locke, senior ranger for this district. What the hell is going on? Mara collapsed into a chair, exhausted. It's a long story. Give me the short version. While Santos explained, trafficking ring, corrupt cops, assassination attempt, Eli moved to the windows, checking sight lines. The station was small but solid, log construction, limited entry points, defensible if it came to that. But they didn't have ammunition for a prolonged fight. His AR-15 had maybe 8 rounds left. Santos's Glock was running low. They needed backup, not another firefight. Brenna listened to Santos's story with growing alarm. When he finished, she was silent for a moment. Then, I've seen them. All three turned to look at her. Seen who? Mara asked. Trucks, heavy duty, moving through the forest at night. I've been reporting it for months. Unauthorized vehicles on Forest Service land. My superiors told me not to worry about it, said they were probably just hunters or local contractors. Brenna's jaw tightened. But hunters don't move in convoys, and contractors don't drive with their lights off. You saw the mountain viper's supply chain, Mara said quietly. They've been using the national forest to move product, remote roads, no witnesses, no oversight. And you're telling me local law enforcement was protecting them? Someone was. Mara looked at Eli and Santos. Someone high enough to make investigations disappear, to keep rangers from asking questions, to know every move we made. Brenna moved to a desk and pulled out a map, spreading it across the surface. Show me where you saw these trucks. Mara moved to the map, pointing. Here. This old logging road. It connects to a mine entrance, abandoned mine. That's where I found evidence of their staging area. The Silver Point mine. Brenna traced the route with her finger. It's been closed for 30 years, but I've seen fresh tire tracks near the entrance. Recent activity. She looked up. What kind of evidence? Shipping manifests, weapons crates, laboratory equipment for processing drugs, and Mara's voice dropped. Chains. In the deep chambers, where they keep the people they're trafficking. The room went quiet. Even Eli, who'd seen the worst of human cruelty in war zones, felt his stomach turn at the implications. Brenna's face had gone hard. How many people? I don't know. I got spotted before I could do a full recon. That's when everything went to hell. Sterling called me in for an emergency meeting. I thought he was going to help me. Instead, she touched her bruised face. Instead, he tried to have me killed. We need that satellite uplink, Santos said. Now, before they find us here. Brenna moved to a desk in the corner where a sophisticated communications array was set up. Satellites up? Who are we calling? My brother, Special Agent Corbin Vance, Denver DEA Field Office. Mara rattled off a number. Tell him it's an emergency. Tell him Mara needs him. Brenna made the connection. The satellite link took a moment, crackling with static, then cleared. A male voice answered. This is Vance. Agent Vance, this is Senior Ranger Brenna Locke, Forest Service. I have your sister here. She says it's urgent. Put her on. Brenna handed the radio to Mara. She took it with shaking hands. Corbin? Mara? Jesus, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours. Sterling called me, said you'd gone dark. Said, Sterling tried to kill me. Mara's voice was flat, final. He's dirty, Cor. He's part of the trafficking ring I've been investigating. He set me up tonight. Had me beaten and left to die in a blizzard. If it wasn't for a civilian who found me, I'd be dead. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Corbin's voice came back, tight with controlled fury. Tell me everything. Mara did. She laid it all out. The 8-month investigation, the evidence she'd gathered, Sterling's betrayal, the assault on Eli's cabin, their escape to the ranger station. When she finished, her brother was quiet for several heartbeats. Mara, he said finally, I'm coming. Full tactical team. But it's going to take time. The storm has the highways closed. We're looking at minimum 4 hours before we can mobilize. We don't have 4 hours. Sterling's team is hunting us right now. They'll find the station eventually. Then you need to hold out until we get there. Find a defensible position. Stay alive. Can you do that? Mara looked around the small ranger station, looked at Eli, at Santos, at Brenna, at Titan lying by her feet, exhausted but watchful. We'll do what we have to do. I need you to send me everything you have. All your evidence, every photo, every document. Email it, upload it, I don't care. Just Get it to me before they can destroy it. Most of it was in my vehicle, or in my apartment. Sterling's people probably have it by now. Then tell me, everything you remember, names, locations, supply routes. We'll build a case from your testimony. For the next 20 minutes, Mara talked while Corbin recorded everything. She named names, described locations, outlined the trafficking network structure as she understood it. She detailed Sterling's involvement, his meetings with known Vipers associates, the evidence she'd seen of him taking payoffs. While she worked, Eli stood watch at the window. The storm was still raging, but through brief gaps in the snow, he caught glimpses of movement in the tree line. They were out there, searching, getting closer. He moved to Brenna. How many weapons do you have here? Sidearm, shotgun, hunting rifle. She met his eyes. You think they're coming here? I know they are. It's the only structure for miles. Sterling's smart enough to check it. Then we need to be ready. Brenna moved to a cabinet and pulled out the weapons. The shotgun was a Remington 870, same as Eli had lost in the cabin fire. The rifle was a lever-action Winchester, old but reliable. I've got maybe 50 rounds total between all of them. Better than nothing. Eli checked the Winchester, found it well maintained. Can you shoot? I've been a ranger for 15 years. I can shoot. Good. Because we're about to have company. As if on cue, Santos hissed from his position at the front window. Movement. 3 men, coming from the southeast. Eli joined him, looking out. 3 figures were approaching the station cautiously, weapons ready. Not Sterling's main force. A scout team, checking the building before committing everyone. Mara, Eli called quietly. Time to wrap up that call. She was already finishing. Corbin, they're here. We have to go. Stay alive, sis.
4 hours. I promise. 4 hours. She handed the radio back to Brenna. If we don't make it, he has everything. At least the case won't die with us. Nobody's dying. Eli moved away from the window. Brenna, is there a back exit? Service door. Leads to the utility shed and the forest beyond. Then that's our way out. We let them think we're fortifying here, then slip out the back while they're preparing to breach. That's the same plan we used at the cabin, Santos pointed out. It worked once, and they won't expect us to use it again. Eli turned to Mara. Can you move? She stood, testing her legs, still weak but functional. I can move. Then let's move, before they box us in. They gathered their weapons and supplies quickly. Brenna grabbed a backpack filled with emergency gear, fire starters, emergency blankets, water purification tablets, survival equipment that might mean the difference between life and death in the wilderness. Eli cracked open the back door, checking the approach. Clear for now, but that would change fast once Sterling's men realized they were running again. Go, he whispered. Fast and quiet. Head northeast. Stay in the trees. Don't stop until you can't hear them behind you. Santos went first again, followed by Mara and Titan. Brenna was next. Eli came last, pausing to leave one more surprise. He turned on the ranger station's propane heater, cranked it to maximum, then wedged a chair against the gas line valve. Not as dramatic as a gasoline explosion, but in a few minutes the buildup would create enough of a boom to make Sterling's men think twice. He slipped out into the storm and closed the door silently behind him. The group was already 30 yards into the forest. Eli caught up quickly, his eyes scanning constantly for threats. Behind them, he could hear voices near the ranger station. The scout team was closing in. They moved through the darkness for 5 minutes before the explosion came. Smaller than the cabin blast, but still loud enough to echo through the forest. Shouts of alarm followed. Sterling would be realizing now that they'd been tricked twice. He'd be angry. Angry people made mistakes. Eli was counting on that. But angry people were also dangerous. They pushed deeper into the wilderness, no destination now except away. Away from Sterling, away from the men who wanted them dead. The storm was their ally and their enemy. It hid their trail, but also made every step treacherous. Mara was flagging again, her body pushed beyond its limits. Santos stayed close to her, ready to catch her if she fell. After another mile, Brenna held up a hand. There's a cave system near here. Old mining prospect holes. We could shelter there, wait out the storm and the pursuit. They'll search every cave, Eli said.
Not these. They're not on any maps. I found them during a survey 3 years ago. Never bothered reporting them because they're unstable, too dangerous for civilian access. Unstable how? Partial collapse, narrow passages, risk of further cave-ins. Brenna smiled grimly. But if you're desperate enough, you can get pretty deep in there, and nobody would follow unless they were suicidal. Eli looked at Mara. She was barely staying upright. They needed shelter, needed rest, needed time to regroup and plan their next move. How far? Quarter mile. Due east. Lead the way. They changed direction, fighting through heavy drifts. The wind was howling now, a banshee shriek that drowned out all other sound. Visibility was down to 10 feet. They were moving blind, trusting Brenna's knowledge of the terrain. Then she stopped at what looked like a jumble of boulders. Here. Eli couldn't see any cave entrance, just rocks and snow. Brenna moved to a specific boulder and pushed. It shifted, revealing a narrow gap behind it. Dark space. A passage leading down into the earth. It's tight for the first 20 feet, then it opens into a chamber. From there, the tunnel system extends maybe 200 yards before the collapse. Has anyone else ever found this? Not that I know of. It would have to be enough. Everyone in, now. Santos helped Mara through the gap. Titan followed, squeezing his body through with difficulty. Brenna went next. Eli came last, pulling the boulder back into position behind them. From outside, it would look like solid rock, unpassable, natural. Inside, the darkness was absolute. Brenna clicked on a flashlight from her pack. The beam revealed a narrow passage, the walls pressing close, the ceiling low enough that they had to crouch. They moved forward in single file, the passage sloping down into the earth. The temperature rose slightly, not warm but less brutally cold than the surface. After 20 claustrophobic feet, the passage opened into a chamber maybe 15 feet across. The ceiling was higher here, allowing them to stand. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. The air smelled of stone and minerals. "We can rest here," Brenna said. "Catch our breath. Figure out what comes next." Mara sat down heavily against the wall, exhausted. Titan curled up beside her, his head in her lap. Santos paced, nervous energy keeping him moving. Eli stood near the entrance, listening for sounds of pursuit. For several minutes, no one spoke. They were all processing what had happened, what they'd survived, what still lay ahead. 4 hours. That's what Corbin had said. 4 hours until help arrived. But Sterling had at least 15 men hunting them, and the storm showed no signs of stopping. "Tell me about Sterling," Eli said finally, breaking the silence. "Who is he?" Beyond the badge, Mara looked up. Marcus Sterling. 38 years old. 15 years with the sheriff's department. Rose through the ranks fast. Made lieutenant at 32. Decorated officer. Community leader. Her voice was bitter. Everyone loved him, including me. I trusted him completely. When did you start suspecting him? 3 weeks ago. I'd been gathering intel on the Mountain Vipers for months, building a profile on their leadership. I started noticing patterns. Every time I got close to making a major bust, something would go wrong. Suspects would disappear, evidence would vanish, witnesses would suddenly recant their statements. She rubbed her face. At first I thought it was just bad luck, or that the Vipers were better at operational security than I gave them credit for. But then I set a trap. What kind of trap? I fed Sterling false information. Told him I was planning a raid on a specific location at a specific time. A location that was actually empty, but I watched it anyway, from a distance. And sure enough, Viper soldiers showed up 30 minutes before my fake raid time. They swept the area looking for evidence, looking for anything incriminating. Then they left. She met Eli's eyes. Someone had warned them, and the only person who knew about that raid was Sterling. Did you confront him? I wanted to, but I had no proof. It was my word against his, and he's untouchable, the golden boy of the department. Her fists clenched. So I kept digging, started investigating him instead of the Vipers, followed him, documented his movements, and I found meetings, late-night meetings with known Viper associates, money changing hands, phone calls to burner numbers. Her voice dropped. That's when I knew. It wasn't just Sterling covering for them. He was actively working with them. Probably has been for years. Santos looked sick. How deep does this go? How many other cops are involved? I don't know. Sterling's the only one I can prove. But there could be others, deputies, detectives, maybe even the sheriff himself. Mara shook her head. That's why I couldn't tell you, Raphael. I couldn't tell anyone, because I didn't know who was dirty and who was clean. But you told Corbin. Corbin's DEA, federal, outside the chain of command. He's the only one I knew I could trust absolutely. She looked at Eli. And now I'm trusting you, a stranger who saved my life. A man I know nothing about except that he fights like a demon and burns down his own home to keep people safe. Eli was quiet for a moment, then, You want to know who I am? I'm someone who's seen what happens when the people supposed to protect you become the predators. I fought in places where the government was as dangerous as the terrorists, where you couldn't trust anyone except your team, where every day was survival and every night was wondering if the guy next to you would sell you out for the right price. He leaned against the cave wall. I came home because I was tired of that world. Tired of the violence and the corruption and the impossible choices. I wanted peace, wanted to raise my son somewhere safe, somewhere good. And instead you found this, Mara said softly. Instead, I found this. He smiled without humor. Turns out peace is harder to find than I thought. Evil doesn't stay in war zones. It follows you home, sets up shop in quiet mountain counties, wears a badge, and pretends to serve and protect while it feeds on the innocent. So what now? Brenna asked. We can't hide in this cave forever. Sterling will keep hunting, and when the storm clears, he'll have even more resources to throw at us. We wait for Corbin, Santos said. 4 hours. We can survive 4 hours. Can we? Brenna gestured toward the cave entrance. They know we're in this area. They'll search every structure, every shelter. Eventually they'll find us. Not if we keep moving, Eli said. We rest here for an hour. Let them waste time searching the wrong areas. Then we head out again. Keep moving until dawn. By then, Corbin should be close. And if Sterling catches us before then? Eli's voice was cold. Then we make sure he regrets it. They settled into an uneasy silence. Brenna distributed emergency rations from her pack, energy bars, water bottles. Not much, but enough to keep them going. Mara ate mechanically, her eyes distant. She was thinking about Sterling, Eli realized. Thinking about the betrayal. The man she'd trusted with her life had tried to take it. That kind of wound went deep. Titan shifted position, whimpering softly. His broken leg was causing him pain despite Santos's makeshift splint. Brenna examined it gently. This dog needs a vet. Soon. The bone's set wrong. If it heals like this, he'll never walk properly again. He'll hold out, Mara said quietly. Titan's the toughest dog I've ever known. He's survived worse than a broken leg. What's his story? Eli asked. Mara's face softened. I got him 3 years ago. Fresh out of K9 training. Best tracking dog in the program. He saved my life more times than I can count. Tracked down escaped prisoners. Found missing children. Sniffed out drugs and weapons that would have hurt a lot of people. She scratched behind his ears. Tonight he saved my life again. Fought off 3 men twice his size. Broke his leg protecting me. And he's still here, still loyal, still ready to fight if I need him. Dogs like that are rare, Brenna said. The kind that won't quit even when they should. Sounds like someone else I know, Santos said, looking at Mara. She smiled faintly. We're a good team, always have been. An hour passed. Eli stood watch while the others rested, his ears tuned to every sound. Outside, the storm continued its assault on the mountain, but underneath the wind, he thought he heard other sounds, voices, engines. The hunters were still out there, still searching. Finally, he moved to the group. Time to move. They're getting close. They gathered their gear with practiced efficiency. Brenna led them deeper into the cave system, past the main chamber and into a network of narrower tunnels. The passages twisted and turned, disorienting. Without Brenna's knowledge of the layout, they would have been lost in minutes. After 10 minutes of careful navigation, they reached another chamber, smaller than the first. Brenna pointed to a passage on the far side. That leads to another exit. Comes out about half a mile from where we entered. If they find the main entrance, they won't know about this one. Unless they bring dogs, Santos said. Even with dogs, these tunnels are a maze. We'll have a head start. They moved toward the second exit. As they walked, Eli noticed something, scratches on the walls, recent scratches, and boot prints in the thin layer of dust. Multiple sets. Brenna, he said quietly, I thought you said no one else knew about these caves. She looked at the marks, her face going pale. They didn't. These are new. Which means the Vipers have been using them too. Mara examined the scratches, probably as a waypoint or a cache site. Or, Brenna said slowly, as a holding area for the people they're trafficking. The cave suddenly felt darker, more oppressive. How many victims had been dragged through these passages? How many had left alive? They reached the second exit, another narrow gap partially hidden by fallen rocks. Brenna pushed through first, checking the outside. Clear. One by one, they emerged into the storm. The wind hit them like a physical force. Dawn was approaching now, the sky lightening to a dull gray behind the clouds. Visibility was marginally better, maybe 20 feet. And in that gray light, Eli saw them. 4 figures. Standing in the tree line, weapons raised, they'd been waiting at the second exit. Ambush! Eli shoved Mara back toward the cave entrance even as gunfire erupted, but there was nowhere to go. The cave behind them, armed men in front. They were trapped. Santos returned fire, his Glock barking. One of the figures went down, the others scattered, taking cover behind trees. More gunfire echoed through the forest. Bullets sparked off rocks near the cave entrance. Brenna had the Winchester up, working the lever action, putting rounds down range with impressive accuracy. Another figure dropped, but more were coming. Eli could see them through the trees, Sterling's main force converging on the sound of gunfire. Back in the cave, Eli shouted. Move! They retreated into the narrow passage. Eli and Brenna provided covering fire while Mara and Santos pulled back. Titan was barking, that fierce guard dog sound. The passage would be defensible. The narrow opening created a fatal funnel that any attacker would have to breach single file. But it was also a trap. With only one exit, Sterling could simply wait them out. Or worse, collapse the entrance and bury them alive. They fell back to the small chamber. Eli was calculating ammunition, maybe 30 rounds total across all their weapons, against 15 men. The math was impossible. There has to be another way out, Santos said, desperation creeping into his voice. Brenna shook her head. The rest of the system is collapsed. Dead ends and unstable passages. We'd get lost or buried. Then we make a stand here. Mara's voice was resolved. We've got a choke point, limited approaches. We can hold them off. For how long? Santos asked. As long as we have to. She checked her pistol. Corbin's coming. We just have to survive until he gets here. Eli moved to the entrance passage, peering toward the outside. He could see shadows moving. Sterling's men, organizing for an assault. They weren't rushing in. They were being smart, setting up fields of fire, preparing to overwhelm with superior numbers. Then Sterling's voice echoed into the cave, amplified by the stone walls. Detective Vance, this ends one of 2 ways. You come out peacefully, or we come in and drag your body out. Your choice. Mara moved beside Eli, cupping her hands around her mouth. Or there's a third option, Marcus. Federal agents are already on their way. My brother knows everything. DEA, FBI, they're all coming. You're finished. Your brother, Sterling laughed, the sound harsh and echoing. You really think Corbin doesn't know what's going on? You think he's clean? Mara, you're so naive. The corruption goes higher than you can imagine. Federal, state, local, we're all connected. We're all getting paid. Your brother will show up, pretend to investigate, and then all evidence will disappear, just like it always does. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself why I was so confident using your brother as your handler. Ask yourself why he never questioned my reports, why he never dug deeper when things went wrong. Because he's part of it, Mara. He's been part of it from the beginning. Mara's face went white. No, Corbin would never... Wouldn't he? For the right price? For enough money to retire in luxury? Sterling's voice was mocking now. You trusted me. You trusted him. And we both betrayed you. You're all alone, detective. No backup coming. No rescue. Just you and your new friends dying in a cave while the world moves on without you.
For a moment, doubt flickered across Mara's face. Then her jaw set. Even if that were true, I'd rather die fighting than live as your accomplice. So be it. The assault came fast. Flashbangs arced into the passage, exploding with concussive force. Eli and Brenna ducked back, temporarily blind and deaf. Then Sterling's men rushed the entrance. Eli fired blind, the AR-15 barking in his hands. He heard screams, bodies falling, but they kept coming. He emptied his magazine, dropped it, reached for another, and realized he was out. He transitioned to his pistol just as a figure appeared in the passage.
Eli put 2 rounds center mass. The man dropped. Another came behind him. Eli fired again. Click. Empty. The man raised his rifle. Eli was out of ammunition, out of options. Then Titan launched himself forward with a roar of pure rage, broken leg and all. The dog hit the man like a missile, jaws clamping on his gun arm. The rifle fired wildly. The man screamed and went down under 80 pounds of fury and teeth. Brenna stepped over them both and fired the Winchester point blank into the passage. The lever action worked smooth and fast. She was a machine, working the rifle, dropping targets, her face set in grim determination. But they were being overwhelmed. Too many attackers, not enough ammunition. Santos was down to his last magazine. Mara was firing single-aimed shots, making every round count. But it wasn't enough. The tide was turning against them. Eli grabbed the fallen rifle from the man Titan had taken down. Full magazine. He brought it up just as 3 more figures charged the passage. Then the world exploded. Not an explosion, thunder, gunfire. But not from inside the cave. From outside. Behind Sterling's men. Heavy caliber. Automatic weapons. The assault on the cave stopped abruptly. Sterling's men turned to face this new threat. Through the passage, Eli could see chaos. Muzzle flashes in the pre-dawn light. Men falling. Orders being shouted. Then a voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is the DEA! Weapons down! Hands up! You're surrounded!" Corbin. He'd made it. Somehow, impossibly, he'd made it through the storm in under 4 hours. Sterling's men tried to fight, tried to shoot their way out, but they were caught between the federal agents outside and the desperate survivors in the cave. The firefight lasted less than a minute. Then silence. Eli moved carefully to the entrance, rifle ready. Outside, dawn light revealed the scene. Federal agents in tactical gear were securing prisoners. Black SUVs with DEA markings were parked in the clearing, and standing in the center of it all was a man who looked remarkably like Mara. Same dark hair, same sharp eyes, same determined jaw. Corbin Vance saw Eli emerge and raised a hand. "Friendly! Hold fire!" Eli lowered his weapon. Behind him, Mara stumbled out of the cave, tears streaming down her face. "Corbin?" Her brother was there in 3 strides, catching her as her legs gave out, holding her as she sobbed against his chest. "I got you, sis. I got you. You're safe now. You came." He said, "Sterling said you were dirty, said..." "Sterling's a liar." Corbin's voice was fierce. "I've been investigating him for 6 months, ever since you first mentioned suspicions. I've been building a parallel case, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to move. When you called tonight, I knew it was time." He pulled back, looking at her. "You did it, Mara. You broke it open. Without your testimony, we'd never have enough to make charges stick." Santos and Brenna emerged from the cave, supporting each other. Titan limped out last, victorious despite his injury. Federal agents moved forward with first aid kits, blankets, water. Corbin looked at Eli. "You must be the civilian who's been keeping my sister alive." Eli Mercer. Corbin Vance. "Thank you. For everything." He extended his hand. Eli shook it. "Just did what needed doing." "You did a hell of a lot more than that." Corbin gestured at the scene. "We've got 11 prisoners, multiple weapons charges, attempted murder of federal witnesses, and thanks to Mara's testimony, enough evidence to roll up the entire Mountain Vipers network." He paused. "Sterling tried to run when we showed up. Didn't get far. He's in custody now, singing like a canary, naming names, giving up the whole operation in exchange for a deal." "There are others," Mara said. In the department, in the county government. He had help. And we'll find them, every single one. Corbin's face was hard. This is just the beginning, sis. Before we're done, Silver Ridge County is going to be cleaned out from top to bottom. Paramedics arrived with stretchers. Mara refused hers, insisting on walking to the ambulance under her own power. Titan got his own medical team, a veterinary unit that immediately started treating his broken leg with professional care. Eli found himself sitting on the bumper of an ambulance, wrapped in a thermal blanket, watching the sun finally break through the clouds. The storm was passing. A new day was beginning. Around him, federal agents worked the scene with methodical efficiency. Justice in action. Brenna sat down beside him. Hell of a night. Yeah. You're not just some random civilian, are you? Eli smiled faintly. Used to be military. Thought I left that life behind. Did you? He thought about the question, about the violence tonight, the tactical decisions, the easy way he'd slip back into combat mode. Maybe you never really leave it behind. Maybe it's always there, waiting. And when the moment comes, you remember who you were, who you still are underneath the civilian clothes. That's a dark thought. It's the truth. He looked at her. What about you? You did good work tonight. Saved a lot of lives. I'm just a ranger. This was way outside my job description. You were a soldier when it counted. That's what matters. She was quiet for a moment. Then, what happens now, for you? I go home, rebuild my cabin, hug my son, try again to find that peace. He stood, letting the blanket fall away. And this time, maybe I'll actually succeed. Mara approached, moving slowly but steady. Her color was better, her eyes were clear. Eli, I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You saved my life multiple times. You fought for me when you had every reason to run. Her voice broke. You're a hero. I'm just a guy who couldn't walk away from someone in trouble. That's the definition of a hero. She stepped closer. When this is all over, when the trials are done and the county is cleaned up, I want to buy you dinner. I want to hear your story, the real one. Who you were, why you came here, what you're running from. I'm not running from anything. Aren't you? She smiled gently. It's okay. We all run from something, but tonight you stopped running. You stood and fought, and you won. She touched his arm briefly. Thank you, Eli Mercer, for everything. Then she walked away back to her brother, back to the federal agents who needed her testimony. Eli watched her go, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. Connection. The sense that maybe, just maybe, he'd found where he belonged. Santos appeared at his elbow. Hey, the DEA wants statements from all of us. Gonna be a long debrief. I figured. Eli looked at the young deputy. You did good out there, Raphael. Stayed cool under fire, protected your detective. That's solid police work. Santos flushed. I was terrified the whole time. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what needs doing despite being scared. Eli clapped him on the shoulder. You're going to be a hell of a cop, the kind this county needs. If there's still a county sheriff's department after all this. There will be. Clean now. Better. Because of what you and Mara did tonight. The sun climbed higher, burning away the last of the storm clouds. Federal agents continued their work. Prisoners were loaded into vehicles. Evidence was collected. The machinery of justice ground forward. And somewhere in all of it, Eli Mercer stood watching. A warrior who'd found his war one more time. Who'd stood between evil and innocence and refused to yield. The storm had passed. The battle was won. But Eli knew, deep in his bones, that this wasn't over. Sterling was talking, yes. But men like him never gave up all their secrets. There were still shadows in Silver Ridge County. Still corruption to root out. Still innocent people who needed protecting. And maybe that was okay. Maybe that's what he'd been looking for all along. Not peace, but purpose. A reason to keep fighting. A cause worth the cost. He looked toward the horizon, where his cabin had stood. Where his son waited in town, safe and unaware of the night his father had just survived. He'd rebuild, create a new home. And this time he'd build it stronger, ready for whatever darkness came next. Because Eli Mercer understood now what he'd been trying to forget. You don't escape war by running from it. You escape it by winning it, by standing your ground and refusing to let evil win. The quiet place he'd been searching for wasn't a location. It was a choice. The choice to fight when fighting mattered. The choice to protect when protection was needed. The choice to be the kind of man who doesn't walk away when someone's dying in the snow. He'd found that place tonight. Not in the calm, but in the storm. Not in safety, but in sacrifice. And somehow, impossibly, he felt more at peace than he had in years. The awakening wasn't Mara's. It was his. Coming back to life. Coming back to purpose. Coming home to who he really was. And as the sun rose over Silver Ridge County, burning away the darkness, Eli Mercer smiled and walked toward the federal agents who needed his statement. The war wasn't over. But he was ready for it now, ready to stand, ready to fight, ready to protect the quiet places where good people tried to live good lives. Because that's what warriors did. They stood at the wall between civilization and chaos. And they held the line, no matter what it cost them. The federal command post had been set up in the Silver Ridge County Community Center, a sprawling brick building that now buzzed with the controlled chaos of a major investigation. Eli sat in a folding chair nursing his third cup of bad coffee, watching agents move between workstations like a well-choreographed dance. He'd given his statement twice already. They'd asked him to wait. So he waited. Across the room, Mara was deep in conversation with her brother and two other agents, pointing at maps spread across a table. She'd been going non-stop for 6 hours, running on adrenaline and determination. Every few minutes, her hand would drift down to where Titan should have been. Then she'd remember he was at the emergency veterinary clinic getting proper treatment for his leg. Santos appeared beside Eli with 2 sandwiches wrapped in plastic. They're feeding us now, basic provisions for witnesses. He handed one to Eli. Turkey or ham? I grabbed turkey for both of us because the ham looks suspicious. Appreciate it. Eli unwrapped the sandwich. His body was reminding him he hadn't eaten anything substantial in almost 24 hours. The energy bars in the cave didn't count. How long do you think they'll keep us? Santos asked, settling into the chair beside him. Until they're satisfied they've got every detail. Could be hours, could be days. Eli took a bite. The sandwich was dry but edible. Get comfortable. I can't believe it's really over. Sterling in custody. The Vipers network compromised. We actually won. Did we? Eli's voice was quiet. Sterling's talking, yeah, but he's talking to save his own skin. Men like him always hold back the most important cards, and we still don't know how deep this goes. Santos frowned. You think there are more dirty cops? I think corruption doesn't exist in isolation. Sterling had help, resources, protection. That takes infrastructure. Eli watched Mara across the room. She was animated now, insistent about something. Her brother was shaking his head. And I think we're about to find out just how much we don't know. As if summoning trouble with his words, raised voices erupted from the conference area. Mara's voice cut through the noise. That's insane. You can't seriously be considering his deal. Corbin's response was calm but firm. It's not my call, Mara. The U.S. attorney wants results. Sterling's offering to give us the entire network in exchange for witness protection and reduced charges. He tried to kill me. He's responsible for trafficking dozens of people. And you want to give him a deal? I want to take down everyone involved. If Sterling can give us that, then yes, we consider the deal. Corbin gestured at the maps. He's already given us 3 safe houses, 2 distribution centers, and names of 17 people in his network. That's more than we've gotten in 2 years of investigation. It's not enough. He needs to pay for what he's done. And he will. Just not as much as you want him to. Corbin's voice softened. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but we have to think bigger picture. Sterling is a mid-level player. The people above him are the real targets. Mara's hands clenched into fists. There's someone above Sterling? He claims there is. Someone he calls Kane. No last name, no identification, just a code name. According to Sterling, Kane runs the entire Mountain Vipers operation, controls the trafficking routes, the distribution networks, the protection racket. Sterling says he's never met Kane face to face. Everything was done through intermediaries. That's convenient. He can claim this Kane person exists and there's no way to verify it. Which is why we need more information. Corbin tapped the map. Sterling says Kane is planning something big. A major shipment coming through in the next 72 hours. Weapons, drugs, and a transport of people. If we can intercept it, we can trace it back to Kane. But Sterling won't give us the details unless his deal is guaranteed. Mara turned away, frustration written across her face. Her eyes found Eli across the room. For a moment, their gazes locked. He saw the anger there, the sense of injustice. He understood it completely. In war, the enemy didn't get deals, they got bullets. But this wasn't war. This was the legal system, with all its compromises and calculated trades. She walked over to him, Santos discreetly standing to give them space. She dropped into the vacated chair with an exhausted sigh. They're going to let him walk. Not walk, just not fall as hard as he should. Same thing. No, Eli said quietly. Walking means he gets away clean. This means he gets branded a traitor, loses everything he had, and spends the rest of his life looking over his shoulder wondering if the people he betrayed will come for revenge. That's its own kind of prison. It's not justice. Justice and the law aren't always the same thing. You know that better than I do. Mara rubbed her face. I know. I wanted him to pay, really pay, for every person he hurt, every life he destroyed, every time he looked me in the eye and lied. He will pay. Maybe not in the way you want, but the universe has a way of balancing scales. Eli set down his sandwich. Question is, do you believe this Kane person exists? Sterling's not smart enough to run an operation this size alone. So yeah, I believe someone's above him. Whether it's this mysterious Kane or someone else, there's a bigger fish out there. She looked at Eli. They want me back on the case, active duty, working with the DEA to take down whoever's at the top. What do you want? I want to finish this. I've spent 8 months of my life on this investigation. I've been beaten, left for dead, hunted through a blizzard. I'm not walking away now. Her jaw set. But they want me to do it by the book, following Sterling's leads, playing their game. And you want to do it differently. I want to go after them the way they came after me. Hard, fast, no mercy. Eli studied her, the exhaustion in her eyes, the determination, the rage barely held in check. He recognized it. He'd worn that same expression in the mirror after watching his team get ambushed in Fallujah by people they'd trusted. That path doesn't lead anywhere good, says the man who fought off 15 armed men by himself and burned down his own home. I did what I had to do to protect people. That's different than hunting someone out of revenge. Is it? Yeah, because protection is about saving lives. Revenge is about taking them. One keeps you human, the other turns you into the thing you're fighting. He met her eyes. You're a good cop, Mara. Don't let Sterling turn you into something else. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, how do you do it? Come back from that edge? You were military? You've killed people. How do you live with it? By remembering why I did it. And by choosing very carefully when to pull that trigger. Eli leaned back. Every life I took, I can justify. Can explain. Can trace back to a moment where it was them or someone innocent. But the weight's still there. Always will be. You learn to carry it or it crushes you. I don't want to carry that weight. Then don't pick it up. Work within the system. Let your brother's team do their job. Be the detective who builds cases, not the executioner who delivers sentences. Mara nodded slowly. You're right. I know you're right. It's just hard to think clearly when I'm this tired and this angry. Then rest. Let the feds do their thing for a few hours. You've earned it. Before she could respond, Brenna Locke entered the command post, and the energy in the room shifted immediately. The ranger looked grim, carrying a tablet and a manila folder. She made a straight line for Corbin's conference table. We've got a problem. Corbin looked up. What kind of problem? The kind where Sterling might be playing you. Brenna set the tablet on the table, pulling up satellite imagery. I've been coordinating with Forest Service to map out the areas Sterling identified as Viper safe houses. 3 of them check out. Active sites, recent vehicle traffic, thermal signatures consistent with occupancy. That's good news. Except the 4th location doesn't exist. Brenna zoomed in on a section of forest. Sterling said there's a staging facility here, coordinates he provided. But according to our satellite data and ground surveys, there's nothing there. Just old growth forest, no structures, no roads, no sign of human activity in years. Mara had moved closer, listening. He gave you a false location? Either that or he's confused about coordinates. But Sterling was specific, very specific, which makes me think this is deliberate. Brenna pulled up another image. What's more interesting is what's 5 miles east of his fake location. The Silver Point mine, the actual trafficking site that Detective Vance discovered during her undercover work. Corbin's eyes narrowed. Why would he give us a fake location near the real one? Because he's leading you away from something. Eli had joined the group, his tactical mind already working through the implications. Or leading you into something. If you raid the fake location and find nothing, you waste time and resources. Meanwhile, whatever's happening at the real mine continues uninterrupted. Or, Brenna said, he's setting up an ambush. He tells you there's a facility at the fake location. You send in a raid team. They get hit by vipers waiting in the forest. Multiple federal casualties. The investigation gets bogged down in bureaucracy and recriminations. Corbin pulled out his phone. I need to alert the tactical team. If Sterling's playing us... Wait! Mara held up a hand. If Sterling knows we're onto his fake location, he'll adjust. Give us another story, another delay. We need proof he's lying before we confront him. What kind of proof? The kind we get by going to the Silver Point mine. Right now. Before he knows we suspect anything. Mara looked at her brother. If there's activity there, if they're preparing for this big shipment he mentioned, we'll see it, and we'll know Sterling's trying to protect it by sending us in the wrong direction. That's too dangerous. If the Vipers are at the mine in force, then we don't engage. We just observe. Get eyes on the target. Confirm what's happening. Mara's voice was insistent. I've been inside that mine. I know the layout, the approaches, where they keep their supplies and where they keep their prisoners. I can get us close without being detected. Santos stepped forward. I'll go with her. Absolutely not, Corbin said. You're witnesses, not field agents. I can't authorize civilians to... We're not asking for authorization, Mara interrupted. This is my case, my investigation. I've earned the right to see it through. By almost getting killed? By dragging civilians into a war zone? Corbin gestured at Eli. This man lost his home protecting you. Deputy Santos nearly died in that cave. Ranger Locke put her career on the line. And you want to risk their lives again? I want to finish what I started. Mara's voice was steel. And they've all volunteered. We're going, with or without DEA support. The room went quiet. Federal agents pretended to work at their stations, not so subtly listening to the argument. Eli recognized the moment, the fork in the road, the decision that would define everything that came after. Corbin stared at his sister, frustration and concern warring on his face. Finally, he sighed. If I say no, you'll go anyway. Oh, you know me well. Fine, but you take a full tactical team. Body armor, communication equipment, air support on standby. And at the first sign of trouble, you pull back. No heroics, no cowboy moves. Understand? Understood. I mean it, Mara. You've been through hell. You're exhausted, angry, and looking for a fight. That's when people make mistakes. When good cops become dead cops. His voice softened. I can't lose you. Mom and Dad are gone. You're all I have left. Mara's expression softened. You won't lose me. I promise. 2 hours later, Eli found himself in the back of a DEA tactical van, once again checking weapons he'd hoped never to touch again. They'd given him a loaner AR-15, tactical vest, communications headset. He declined the DEA windbreaker. If shooting started, he didn't want to be mistaken for a federal agent. Easier to move as a civilian contractor. Less paperwork if he had to bend rules. Santos sat across from him, looking nervous but determined in his borrowed tactical gear. Brenna was beside him, her ranger uniform supplemented with a ballistic vest and better weapons than Forest Service normally issued. Mara was up front with the tactical team leader, reviewing maps and approach vectors. The van was one of 4 vehicles in the convoy. 2 tactical teams, total of 16 agents, plus the 4 civilians who'd somehow gotten themselves deputized for this operation. Corbin had stayed behind to interrogate Sterling further, to see if he'd slip up now that they knew he was lying, but he'd assigned his best people to protect his sister. The drive to Silver Point Mine took 40 minutes, winding through mountain roads still slick with melting snow from the blizzard. The storm had passed completely now, leaving behind a crystalline landscape that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. But Eli saw it through tactical eyes. Open sight lines, limited cover, difficult terrain for both approach and escape. The convoy stopped a mile from the mine entrance, parking in a hidden logging road that Brenna had identified. The tactical team leader, a hard-faced woman named Agent Reeves, gathered everyone for final briefing. We go in silent, observation only, no engagement unless fired upon. Detective Vance leads us to a vantage point overlooking the mine. We assess, document, and extract. Mission time, 90 minutes maximum. Questions? What if we see prisoners? Santos asked. Do we just leave them there? If we confirm human trafficking in progress, we call it in and wait for reinforcements. We're not equipped for a hostage rescue operation. Reeves looked at each of them. I know you all want to be heroes, but heroes who rush in without backup get people killed. We do this smart, or we don't do it at all. Clear? A chorus of acknowledgments. They moved out in tactical formation, Mara on point with Reeves, the rest spread in a defensive perimeter. The forest was quiet. The only sound their careful footsteps and the occasional whisper of wind through the trees. Eli moved near the rear, his eyes constantly scanning. Something felt wrong. Not immediate danger, but something off. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no small animals. As if the wildlife knew to stay away from this area. After 20 minutes of careful hiking, Mara held up a fist. Everyone froze. She pointed ahead through the trees. Eli moved forward carefully to see what she'd spotted. The Silver Point Mine entrance was a gaping black mouth in the mountainside, surrounded by rotting timber supports and rusted equipment. But what caught his attention wasn't the mine itself. It was the activity around it. Trucks. 6 of them. Heavy duty. Parked in a clearing that had been widened recently, fresh-cut tree stumps still visible. Men moving between the vehicles and the mine entrance. Armed men. At least a dozen visible, probably more inside. Well, Brenna whispered, Sterling definitely lied about there being no activity here. Agent Reeves was on her radio, speaking in hushed tones to the command post. Confirmed. Multiple hostiles, armed presence. Looks like they're loading vehicles. Eli pulled out a compact spotting scope and focused on the clearing. The men were dressed in a mix of tactical gear and biker leathers. Mountain Viper's insignia visible on some of the jackets. They were working with military efficiency, loading crates from inside the mine into the truck beds. Weapons crates, he realized. And something else. Plastic-wrapped packages. Drugs. There, Mara breathed beside him. That's the shipment Sterling mentioned. They're moving it out. We need to see what else is in that mine, Reeves said. If there are prisoners, we need confirmation before we can get authorization for a raid. I can get closer. Mara started forward. Eli caught her arm. Too risky. They've got sentries posted. I've infiltrated this place before. I know how to move without being seen. Before, they didn't know you were a cop. Before, you weren't exhausted and recovering from hypothermia. Before I had backup. She met his eyes. Come with me. You move like a ghost. Between the two of us, we can get to that mine entrance, see what's inside, and get out without being detected. Mara, no, Reeves said. We stick to the plan. The plan was observation. That's what we're doing. Just closer observation. If you get caught, then you have authorization for a tactical response, but we won't get caught. Mara looked at Eli. Will we? He should say no, should tell her this was exactly the kind of reckless decision-making that got people killed, should remind her that she'd promised her brother no heroics, but he was already checking his weapon and preparing to move, because she was right. They needed confirmation, and if anyone could ghost through enemy territory, it was a former SEAL and a detective who'd spent 8 months infiltrating a criminal organization. We go silent, he said quietly. No radios. If something goes wrong, you run back here and I'll cover your extraction. No arguments. No arguments, she agreed. Agent Reeves looked like she wanted to object further, but Mara was already moving. Eli followed, shaking his head at his own questionable judgment. 2 days ago, he'd been a peaceful single dad trying to live a quiet life. Now he was sneaking through hostile territory with a cop who had a death wish. They moved through the forest like shadows, using every bit of cover, every depression in the terrain. Eli led, Mara matching his movements with impressive skill. She'd had good training, or good instincts, probably both. They reached the perimeter of the clearing. From here, Eli could see the mine entrance clearly. 2 guards stationed outside, smoking and talking, their weapons slung casually, not expecting trouble, overconfident. Mara pointed to a rocky outcropping that would give them a view into the mine without crossing the clearing. They skirted the edge of the trees, moving slowly, freezing whenever a guard turned their direction. It took 15 minutes to cover 50 yards. But they made it. The outcropping gave them a perfect angle into the mine entrance. Eli pulled out the spotting scope again and focused on the interior. What he saw made his blood run cold. The mine tunnel had been expanded and reinforced with modern supports. Lights had been strung along the ceiling, illuminating a workspace that extended far back into the mountain. He could see pallets of supplies, work tables covered with chemistry equipment, a drug lab, sophisticated and large scale, and deeper in the mine, barely visible in the shadows, he saw the cages. Chain link enclosures, makeshift cells, and inside them, people, women mostly, a few children, sitting on the bare ground looking hollow-eyed and defeated, prisoners waiting to be transported to whoever had bought them. Beside him, Mara made a small sound of anguish. God, there are so many! At least 20 that I can see. Eli was counting, memorizing faces, looking for security weaknesses. They're keeping them in the back section, away from the lab, probably to prevent contamination or escape attempts. We have to get them out. Not we, the tactical team. Once they have this intel, by the time they mobilize a rescue operation, these trucks will be gone. The prisoners will be gone, scattered across 6 states to buyers we'll never find. Mara's voice was urgent. This is our chance, our only chance. We're 2 people against at least 15 armed men. We're 2 people who've already survived worse odds. She looked at him. You said you came home to protect people. Well, there are people right there who need protecting. Are you going to walk away? That's not fair. It's not about fair. It's about right. Eli closed his eyes, every tactical instinct screaming at him that this was a mistake. Then he opened them and made his decision. We don't go in, but we don't leave either. We stay here. We watch. And the moment they try to move those prisoners, we call in the tactical team and provide covering fire until they arrive. That could be hours. Then we wait hours. He met her gaze. I won't let them disappear into the night, but I also won't throw our lives away on a suicide charge. We're witnesses, intelligence assets. We do more good staying alive and coordinating the response than dying in a heroic last stand. Agreed? Mara struggled with it. He could see the war in her eyes, the desire to act versus the wisdom to wait. Finally, she nodded. Agreed. They settled into position, hidden in the rocks, watching the mine. Eli used hand signals to communicate with the tactical team behind them, updating them on prisoner count and guard positions. Reeves signaled back acknowledgement and that reinforcements were being called in. Time crawled. An hour passed. The Vipers continued loading trucks, crates of weapons, packages of drugs. They were being methodical, checking manifests, clearly preparing for a major transport. Then a new vehicle arrived. A black SUV, expensive, out of place among the trucks. It parked near the mine entrance and a figure emerged, tall, well-dressed, moving with authority. The Viper soldiers immediately straightened, showing deference. That's someone important, Mara whispered. Eli adjusted the scope, trying to get a clear look at the man's face, but he was wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky, and a hat pulled low. Deliberate anonymity. The man spoke briefly with one of the soldiers, then gestured toward the mine. Together they walked inside, disappearing into the lit tunnel. Could that be Kane? Mara asked. Could be, or could be another mid-level player. Eli kept the scope trained on the mine entrance. Either way, if we can identify him, it's another piece of the puzzle. They waited. 10 minutes. 15. Then the man emerged from the mine, followed by 3 of the prisoners. Women, hands zip-tied, looking terrified. The man inspected them like livestock, checking their faces, their build, making selections. Eli felt rage building in his chest, cold, controlled, the kind of anger that didn't explode. It calculated. It waited. It remembered. The man nodded, satisfied with his selections. He spoke to one of the soldiers, gesturing at the prisoners. Money changed hands, an envelope, thick with cash. Then the man returned to his SUV, got in, and drove away. The 3 selected prisoners were loaded into one of the trucks. The others remained in the mine. They're selling them, Mara said, her voice shaking with fury. Right there, in the open, like it's a normal business transaction. Document everything. Faces, license plates, times. We'll need it for prosecution. Eli was already committed now. These people weren't just criminals, they were slavers. And slavers didn't deserve the mercy of due process. But he'd made a promise to Mara, to Corbin, to himself. Do this by the book. Let the system work, even when every fiber of his being wanted to go down there and end them. Another hour passed. The loading was nearly complete. 6 trucks, all filled with cargo. The prisoners remained in the mine, except for the 3 who'd been sold. It was getting dark now, shadows lengthening across the clearing. Then Eli's radio crackled to life. Agent Reeves! Her voice tight. All units be advised, we have incoming. Multiple vehicles approaching from the south access road, at least 4. Unknown if friendly or hostile. Eli swept the scope toward the road. Sure enough, headlights were visible through the trees. Big vehicles, moving fast. The Vipers in the clearing noticed too. Suddenly alert, weapons coming up, defensive positions being taken. They'd been expecting these vehicles, but something was wrong. The approach was too aggressive, too fast. The vehicles burst into the clearing with a roar of engines. Pickup trucks, mounted machine guns in the beds, and the men manning those guns weren't Vipers. They were wearing sheriff's department uniforms. No, Mara breathed. No, that's not possible. But it was happening. The trucks formed a perimeter around the Viper vehicles. Deputies emerged, weapons drawn, but they weren't arresting anyone. They were coordinating with them. And leading them was a figure Eli recognized from the briefing photos, Lieutenant Marcus Sterling. How is he here? Santos's voice came through the radio. He's supposed to be in federal custody. They let him go, Mara said, understanding dawning on her face. The deal. They gave him his deal and released him pending testimony, and the first thing he did was come here. Why? Reeves asked. What's he doing? Eli watched through the scope as Sterling approached the mine entrance, shouting something to the Vipers inside. Men emerged. Not prisoners. Soldiers. Heavily armed. The Vipers and the deputies were working together, checking the trucks, securing the perimeter. And then Sterling pulled out his radio and spoke into it. His words carried across the clearing in the quiet evening air. I know you're out there, Mara. I know you're watching. The feds have trackers on you. I've been following your signal since you left town. So here's how this plays out. You come down here, now, alone. Or I start executing prisoners, 1 every 5 minutes. Your choice. Mara's face went white. Sterling continued. And don't think about calling in your tactical team. I've got deputies positioned on every approach road. The moment your federal friends try to move, we'll know. And everyone in this mine dies. So be a hero, detective. Walk down here and trade yourself for them. You've got 2 minutes to decide. The radio clicked off. Silence fell across the forest. Mara was already moving. Eli grabbed her arm. Don't. It's a trap. I know it's a trap. But he'll do it. He'll kill them. Her voice was desperate. I can't let innocent people die because of me. If you go down there, you die. And then he kills them anyway. That's how men like Sterling operate. Then what do I do? Tears were streaming down her face now. Tell me, Eli, what's the right choice here? He didn't have an answer because there was no right choice, only impossible ones. Sterling's voice boomed across the clearing again. 2 minutes are up, Mara. Last chance. Come out or watch people die because you're a coward. A gunshot rang out, sharp, final. Then Sterling's voice again. That's one. Next one comes in 4 minutes. Mara tore free from Eli's grip and stood, raising her hands. I'm coming! Don't shoot! I'm coming down! Mara, no! Reeves was on the radio. Stand down! That's an order! But Mara was already moving down the slope toward the clearing, hands raised, walking toward Sterling in certain death. And Eli Mercer, warrior who'd sworn to protect, had exactly 4 minutes to figure out how to save her. Eli's mind shifted into combat mode the instant Mara stepped into the clearing. 4 minutes. That's all he had. 4 minutes to turn an impossible situation into a survivable one. His fingers moved across his radio, switching to the tactical frequency. Reeves, I need a diversion, something big, something that pulls their attention away from the mine entrance. Negative, we're not authorized to engage. Backup is 20 minutes out. In 20 minutes, Mara and those prisoners are dead. Eli was already moving, circling around the clearing, using the darkening sky as cover. I'm going in, with or without support. Mercer, stand down. That's a direct order. I don't take orders from you. He clicked off the radio and kept moving. Santos's voice crackled in his ear on a different channel. Eli, wait. I'm coming with you. Stay with the tactical team. Someone needs to coordinate when things go sideways. When? Not if? Never if, always when. Eli reached a position 40 yards from the mine entrance, hidden behind a rusted mining cart. From here, he could see Mara walking slowly toward Sterling, hands still raised. The corrupt lieutenant was smiling, his weapon trained on her. Around him, a dozen men, deputies and vipers alike, had formed a semicircle, all armed, all watching. That's far enough, Sterling called out when Mara was 20 feet away. On your knees, hands behind your head. Mara complied, dropping to her knees in the dirt. Her face was calm, but Eli could see the tension in her shoulders. She was buying time, trusting that somehow someone would find a way to save her. Eli intended to be that someone. He scanned the clearing, cataloging positions. 2 men guarding the mine entrance where the prisoners were held. 4 more near the trucks. The rest in that semicircle around Mara and Sterling. Overlapping fields of fire. No clear approach. Any direct assault would be suicide. So he wouldn't be direct. Sterling walked toward Mara, his gun never wavering. I have to hand it to you, Detective. You're predictable. I knew you couldn't resist trying to save people. That misguided hero complex of yours. He circled her slowly. 8 months you spent pretending to be one of us. 8 months of lies. Did you really think you could bring us down? The Mountain Vipers have been operating for 15 years. We have politicians, judges, law enforcement at every level. You're one cop, one insignificant detective who got too curious. If I'm so insignificant, why are you here? Mara's voice was steady. Why not just let your men handle me? Because you've become expensive, Detective. You've cost me my career, my reputation, my comfortable life. Sterling stopped in front of her. The DEA offered me a deal, yes. Witness protection, a new identity, a chance to disappear, but I don't want to disappear. I want my life back. And the only way to get it is to deliver you and your evidence to Kane. He's willing to pay handsomely for both. Kane? Mara looked up at him. I don't suppose you're going to tell me who he really is. Sterling laughed. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. I've never seen his face, never heard his real name. That's how he operates. Complete anonymity, complete protection. He could be anyone. Your grocer, your neighbor, the mayor, even your precious brother for all you know. Corbin would never... Wouldn't he? You trusted me. How'd that work out? Sterling raised his radio. Kane, I have the package. Detective Vance is secured, awaiting your arrival. A voice crackled back, distorted through electronic modification. Status of her evidence? According to our source in the DEA, she transmitted everything to her brother, but we'll retrieve it, one way or another. And the civilian? The one who's been helping her? Sterling's eyes swept the forest. Still out there somewhere, but he won't interfere, not if he values her life. Eli's jaw tightened. They knew about him, which meant they'd been monitoring the entire operation from the beginning. Someone in the command post was feeding them information. The corruption ran deeper than any of them had realized. The radio crackled again. I'm 10 minutes out. Keep her alive. I want to ask her some questions personally. Understood. Sterling lowered the radio and smiled at Mara. You hear that? 10 more minutes of life. I suggest you make peace with whatever God you believe in. While Sterling was distracted with his radio, Eli noticed movement at the mine entrance. One of the guards had stepped inside, leaving only one watching the prisoners. A mistake. A small one. But in Eli's experience, small mistakes could be exploited into large opportunities. He keyed his radio to Santos. I need that diversion now, something that draws everyone away from the mine entrance. What kind of something? I don't care. Make it loud, make it urgent. Make it happen in 30 seconds. A pause. Then, copy that? Eli counted down. 20 seconds, 15. He moved closer to the mine entrance, staying low, using every bit of cover. 10 seconds. 5. Then the forest exploded with sound. Not an actual explosion. Better. The tactical team had opened fire on the trucks at the far end of the clearing, not at people, but at the vehicles themselves. Tires exploding, windows shattering, the crash of bullets on metal. Everyone in the clearing spun toward the sound, weapons coming up. Sterling was shouting orders. His men were returning fire toward the forest, suppressing the threat. The single guard at the mine entrance took 3 steps away from his post, trying to see what was happening. That's when Eli moved. He covered the distance in seconds, coming up behind the guard and putting him down with a chokehold. The man struggled for maybe 5 seconds before going limp. Eli lowered him quietly, took his weapon and slipped into the mine. The interior was exactly as he'd seen through the scope. Long tunnel, well lit, extending back into the mountain. The drug lab was to his left, abandoned now as the chemists had probably fled when the shooting started. The cages were straight ahead, deeper in. He moved quickly, his weapon up, clearing corners by instinct. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, and there they were. 23 people in chain-link cages, women, children, a few men, all looking at him with terrified eyes. I'm here to help, Eli said quietly, keeping his voice calm despite the gunfire echoing from outside. Federal agents are coming, but I need to get you out now. A woman stepped forward, maybe 30, with hard eyes that had seen too much. Who are you? Someone who doesn't like slavers. Eli examined the cage locks. Heavy padlocks, industrial grade. He could shoot them off, but the noise would bring guards running. He needed another way. The woman pointed to a desk near the lab area. Keys are over there. They keep them close in case they need to move us quickly. Eli ran to the desk, rifling through drawers. Found them. A ring of keys labeled with cage numbers. He ran back and started unlocking cages. When I open these, you run, straight out of the mine, into the forest, away from the clearing. Don't stop. Don't look back. Federal agents are positioned in the trees. They'll protect you. What about you? The woman asked. I'll be right behind you. A lie, but a necessary one. He planned to be between them and anyone who tried to stop their escape. The cages opened one by one. The prisoners emerged, hesitant at first, then with growing urgency as they realized this was real. This was their chance. Eli moved them toward the mine entrance, keeping himself between them and any potential threats. Outside, the firefight was intensifying. He could hear Sterling screaming orders, could hear the tactical team laying down suppressing fire, but he could also hear engines starting. The Vipers were trying to evacuate with their cargo. Go, Eli told the prisoners. Now, run. They ran, streaming out of the mine like water breaking through a dam. 23 people who'd been property minutes ago, now sprinting for freedom. Eli covered their escape, his rifle trained on the clearing, ready to drop anyone who tried to stop them. Sterling saw them. His face went purple with rage. Stop them! Don't let them escape! Several deputies turned, bringing their weapons to bear on the fleeing prisoners. Eli didn't hesitate. He fired 3 rounds, carefully placed shots that kicked up dirt at the deputies' feet. Warning shots. Next ones go higher, he shouted. Drop your weapons or die. The deputies dove for cover instead, choosing survival over obedience. Smart men. But not everyone was smart. 2 Viper soldiers opened fire on the prisoners. Eli saw a woman go down clutching her leg, saw a child stumble and fall. His next shots weren't warnings. 2 precise pulls of the trigger. 2 men dropped and didn't get up. The prisoners kept running, some of them helping the wounded. They reached the tree line where the tactical team was positioned. Eli could hear Reeves shouting orders, agents moving forward to secure the rescued hostages. Sterling had Mara by the arm now, using her as a shield. "Mercer, I know you're in that mine. Come out or she dies." Eli stepped into the entrance, his rifle trained on Sterling, 40 yards of open ground between them. An impossible shot with a human shield. But he'd made impossible shots before. "Let her go, Sterling. It's over. The prisoners are free. Your trucks are disabled. Federal backup is 2 minutes out. You've got nowhere to run." "I've got her. That's all the leverage I need." Sterling pressed his pistol against Mara's temple. "Drop your weapon or I paint the ground with her brains." "You kill her, I kill you. Then your men kill me. Everyone dies. Is that really what you want?" "What I want is to leave here alive and rich, and Detective Vance is my ticket to both." Sterling started backing toward one of the trucks, dragging Mara with him. "Nobody follows us. Nobody takes a shot, or she dies. Understand?" Eli's finger rested on the trigger. He had the shot. Maybe. Sterling's head was partially exposed, a risky shot. A shot that could hit Mara if he was off by even an inch. In the desert, with his spotter, with his M40 sniper rifle, he'd have taken it without hesitation. But here, with a borrowed AR-15 and 40 yards of distance in failing light, the odds weren't good enough. He lowered his rifle slightly. "Okay, you win. Take the truck. Take her. Just don't hurt her." Sterling smiled, victorious. "That's more like it. Tell your federal friends to stand down. We're leaving. When we're clear, I'll let her go." Another lie. Eli knew it. Mara knew it. Sterling would kill her the moment he felt safe. But sometimes you had to let the enemy think they'd won. Sometimes the best strategy was to retreat and regroup. Sterling reached the truck, still using Mara as a shield. He shoved her into the passenger seat, then climbed in behind her, keeping his gun pressed against her ribs. The engine started. The truck began to move, backing out of the clearing. Eli watched them go, his mind already working through tracking strategies. The truck had to follow the access roads. There were only 2 routes out of this area. The tactical team could set up roadblocks, spike strips, containment. Then he heard the sound that changed everything. A bark. Fierce and familiar. And from the forest, a tan and black shape launched itself into the clearing with a speed that shouldn't have been possible for a dog with a broken leg. Titan. The shepherd had somehow escaped the vet clinic, had somehow tracked Mara's scent through miles of forest, had somehow arrived at the exact moment he was needed most. The dog hit the truck like a missile, leaping through the open driver's window and going straight for Sterling. The lieutenant screamed. The truck swerved. Mara grabbed the wheel, jerking it hard to the right. The truck smashed into a tree with a crunch of metal and breaking glass. Eli was running before the echo faded. He covered the 40 yards in seconds, weapon up, ready to end this. Sterling kicked open the truck door and tumbled out, blood streaming from his face where Titan had torn into him. The dog was still attacking, relentless, all fury and loyalty. Mara climbed out the passenger side, dazed but moving. Sterling raised his pistol toward Titan. "Damn dog!" Eli's shot took him in the shoulder. Sterling spun and dropped, his weapon falling from nerveless fingers. He hit the ground hard, gasping. Eli was on him in 2 strides, kicking the pistol away, pressing his rifle barrel against Sterling's chest. "Don't move. Don't breathe. Don't give me a reason." Sterling looked up at him with eyes full of pain and fear. "You can't. I had a deal. Federal protection. You broke that deal the moment you came here." Eli's voice was cold. "You threatened innocent people. You tried to kill a federal witness. You're going away forever, and this time nobody's going to protect you." Mara appeared beside him, Titan limping at her side. She looked down at Sterling with contempt. "It's over, Marcus. Tell me where Kane is. Give me something and maybe you don't spend the rest of your life in a supermax prison." Sterling laughed, bloody and bitter. "You still don't get it. Kane's already here. He's been here the whole time." "What are you talking about?" "Look around, detective. All these men, all these soldiers. Kane doesn't need to show his face because he has us. We're his hands, his eyes, his weapons." Sterling coughed. "You can arrest me. You can arrest everyone here, but Kane will just recruit new people. The operation will continue. It always continues." "Not this time." A new voice, familiar, cut through the clearing. Eli turned to see Corbin Vance emerging from the forest, flanked by a full tactical team, but something was wrong. Corbin's weapon wasn't holstered, it was drawn, and it wasn't pointed at Sterling, it was pointed at Mara. Corbin? Mara's voice was confused. What are you... I'm sorry, sis. Corbin's face was expressionless. I really am. But Sterling was right. The corruption goes all the way up, including me. The world seemed to stop. Eli's rifle started to come up, but 3 red laser dots appeared on his chest. Snipers. Corbin had brought his own men, not to rescue, but to contain. Mara was shaking her head. No, this isn't real. You're my brother. You've been helping me. You sent the tactical team. I sent the team I control. The team that answers to me. Corbin stepped closer. I've been running interference for the Mountain Vipers for 3 years, Mara. The DEA pays well, but Kane pays better. Much better. You're Kane. The words came from Eli, certainty clicking into place. Sterling never met Kane because Kane never needed to meet him. You controlled everything through intermediaries, kept yourself completely clean. Corbin smiled. Very good, Mr. Mercer. Yes, I'm Kane. I built this network from the ground up. I provide protection at the federal level. I make investigations disappear. I identify threats and eliminate them before they become problems. He looked at his sister. You were supposed to be an asset, Mara. I brought you into the department, guided your career, positioned you perfectly. But you turned out to be too honest, too dedicated. You actually believed in justice. And when I started investigating the Vipers, you couldn't just make me disappear without raising suspicions. Mara's voice was hollow. So you let me keep digging, let me build my case, all while feeding my information to Sterling and the others. Exactly. You were useful as a way to identify anyone else in the department who might be investigating us. Everyone you talked to, everyone you trusted, I knew about immediately. Corbin's expression was almost sad. I kept hoping you'd just quit, transfer to another department, give up on this crusade. But you're stubborn, just like Dad. Don't you dare mention him. He was a good cop, a real cop. He was a fool who died poor, killed in the line of duty for a city that didn't care. I learned from his mistake. I decided to actually benefit from my service instead of just collecting a pension and a flag on my coffin. Mara lunged at him. Eli caught her, holding her back as she screamed, You betrayed everything! Everyone! How many people died because of you? How many were sold into slavery? How many lives were destroyed? Thousands, probably. Corbin said it without emotion. But they would have been destroyed anyway. At least this way I profit from their misery. That's how the world actually works, Mara. The strong exploit the weak. The smart exploit everyone. I chose to be smart. Eli's mind was racing, looking for an angle, any advantage. The sniper dots were still on his chest. Corbin's men had them surrounded. The tactical team that had come with them from the command post was nowhere to be seen, either eliminated or contained. They were alone. So what now? Eli asked, his voice calm despite the adrenaline. You kill us both? Blame it on the Vipers? Create some narrative about how we got caught in the crossfire? Something like that. Corbin raised his pistol, aiming at Mara's head. You've been a good sister. I'll make it quick and painless. That's more mercy than you've shown me with this investigation. Wait. Mara held up a hand, tears streaming down her face. Before you do this, just tell me one thing. Did you ever care? Was any of it real? Or was I just a tool from the beginning? Corbin hesitated. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe. Or memory of who he used to be before the corruption consumed him. I did care. I still do. That's why I tried so hard to keep you out of this. But you forced my hand. You wouldn't quit, wouldn't look the other way. And now... He steadied his aim. Now you know too much. In that microsecond before Corbin pulled the trigger, 3 things happened simultaneously. Titan, who'd been lying quietly at Mara's feet, launched himself at Corbin with a roar of protective fury. The broken leg didn't slow him. If anything, it made him more ferocious, as if the dog knew this was his final fight and he'd give everything to protect his handler. Santos, who'd been circling through the forest unnoticed during the conversation, fired his Glock from cover. 3 shots, Rapid fire, not at Corbin, but at the nearest sniper position. One of the red laser dots on Eli's chest vanished, and Eli, who'd been waiting for exactly this kind of chaos, dropped low and swept Mara's legs out from under her, pulling her down and behind him as he brought his rifle up and fired. The clearing exploded into violence. Eli's first shot took out the second sniper. His second caught one of Corbin's tactical team in the vest, doubling him over. Then he was moving, dragging Mara toward cover as bullets chewed up the ground where they'd been standing. Titan had Corbin by the arm, shaking like the dog was trying to tear it off. Corbin screamed and tried to bring his pistol around, but the shepherd wouldn't let go. The two of them went down in a tangle of limbs and fury. Santos was providing covering fire, his Glock barking steadily. 2 more of Corbin's men went down, but there were too many. At least 10 still standing, all trained operators, all opening fire. Eli reached the overturned mining cart and pulled Mara behind it. Bullets sparked off metal. "Stay down. No matter what happens, stay down. I can fight." "I know you can, but I need you alive to testify. You're the only one who can prove all of this." He checked his rifle. Half a magazine left. Not enough. Never enough. "Promise me. Stay alive. Tell the story." Before she could answer, he was moving again, rolling left, coming up behind a stack of old timbers, firing twice. One of Corbin's men dropped. The others scattered, taking cover. This wasn't a rescue anymore. This was survival. And Eli had gotten very good at survival over 8 years in war zones. He heard Santos's Glock run dry, heard the young deputy curse and scramble for cover, saw 2 of Corbin's men moving to flank his position. Eli put them both down with careful shots. 5 rounds left. Then he heard the sound of rotor blades. Helicopters. Multiple. Coming in fast. For a moment he thought it was reinforcements for Corbin, but then he saw the markings. FBI. The real federal response finally arriving. Someone at the command post must have figured out Corbin was dirty and called in outside agencies. Corbin heard them too. His face went from confident to desperate in seconds. "Fall back! Everyone to the trucks! Move!" His remaining men started retreating, but Titan still had Corbin's arm. The dog wouldn't let go, wouldn't give up, even as Corbin beat at him with his free hand. Eli stood and walked toward them. His rifle was trained on Corbin's head. "Call off your men. Surrender, or I end this right now." Corbin looked at him with pure hatred. "You're just a civilian, a burned-out veteran playing hero. You don't have the authority." "I don't need authority. I just need a trigger finger." Eli's voice was ice. "You've got 3 seconds to make a decision." The helicopters were overhead now, spotlights illuminating the clearing. Loudspeakers boomed. "FBI, everyone on the ground, weapons down. This is your only warning." Corbin's men were surrendering, dropping their weapons, putting their hands up. The fight was over. They all knew it, except Corbin. He still had his pistol in his free hand, still had fight left in him. He brought the gun up, not toward Eli, but toward Mara. One last act of spite, one last way to win by taking his sister with him. 3 shots rang out, so close together they sounded like one. The first came from Eli's rifle. Center mass. Corbin's vest stopped it, but the impact knocked him backward. The second came from Santos, who'd reloaded and found a clear angle. It caught Corbin in the thigh, spinning him. The third came from the forest, from Agent Reeves, who'd worked her way around the perimeter with what remained of the legitimate tactical team. Her shot was the one that mattered. It took Corbin in the shoulder, shattering bone, his pistol falling from nerveless fingers. Corbin went down hard. Titan released him finally, limping back to Mara, his job done. The dog collapsed at her feet, exhausted, bleeding, but alive. FBI agents swarmed the clearing, securing prisoners, calling for medics. Eli lowered his rifle slowly, the adrenaline starting to fade, leaving behind bone-deep exhaustion. Mara ran to her brother where he lay bleeding in the dirt. She knelt beside him, her face a mask of anguish. "Why? Why did you do this?" Corbin looked up at her, his face pale with blood loss. "Money, power, the things that actually matter in this world." He coughed. "You'll understand someday. When you're older. When you've seen enough good people die poor and bad people live rich." "I'll never understand." Mara's voice was breaking. "You were my hero, my protector. Everything I wanted to be, and you were a lie. All of it was a lie."
Not all of it. Corbin's hand reached up, touching her face. I did love you. That part was real. I just loved money more. Then his hand fell, consciousness fading. The medics pushed Mara aside, working on him, stabilizing him for transport. He'd live, face justice, spend the rest of his life in prison thinking about the moment he chose corruption over honor. Eli found Santos leaning against a tree, nursing a graze wound on his arm. You good? I've been shot at more in the last 48 hours than in my entire career. Santos managed a weak smile. But yeah, I'm good. We won, right? The bad guys are down. The prisoners are free. We actually won. We survived. That's close enough to winning. Eli looked around the clearing, at the wounded being treated, at the prisoners being led to safety, at Mara crying over a brother who'd betrayed her. Though I'm not sure everyone feels like a winner tonight. Brenna appeared, leading a group of former prisoners toward the helicopters. She stopped beside Eli. The FBI is taking over the entire investigation. Every case Sterling and Corbin touched for the last 5 years, it's going to take months to sort out. But it will get sorted. The corruption's exposed now. Can't hide anymore. Thanks to you. And Detective Vance. And everyone who refused to look the other way. Brenna extended her hand. You're a good man, Eli Mercer. This county's lucky you decided to build your cabin here. Had a cabin, past tense. But he shook her hand. Guess I'll be rebuilding. You'll have help. I guarantee half the county will volunteer once word gets out what you did. She looked toward Mara. What about her? Think she'll be okay? Eventually, she's strong, stronger than she knows. Eli watched Mara stand and walk away from Corbin, her back straight, her shoulders set. She'll carry this wound forever, but she won't let it break her. That's not who she is. The FBI moved Corbin into a helicopter for medical transport. As it lifted off, Mara turned away, unable to watch her brother disappear into the night. She moved through the clearing like a ghost, checking on the rescued prisoners, speaking quietly with the agents, doing her job even though her world had just shattered. Sterling was loaded into an ambulance under guard, facing a lifetime of charges. The remaining Vipers and corrupt deputies were secured in transport vehicles. One by one, the pieces of the Mountain Vipers network were being dismantled. Santos appeared at Eli's side again. The FBI wants statements from all of us. Gonna be another long night. Seems to be a pattern lately. Eli looked at the young deputy. You did good work, Raphael. Real good. You kept your head when everything went crazy. That takes courage. I learned from the best. Santos nodded toward Mara. She never quit, never gave up. Even when her own brother turned out to be the enemy. That's the kind of cop I want to be. Then be that cop. This county needs people like you. People who won't compromise, won't look away, won't be bought. Eli clasped his shoulder. The old guard is gone now. Corrupt ones are being arrested, good ones are stepping up. You've got a chance to help build something better. Don't waste it. I won't, I promise. Hours later, after the statements were given and the scene was processed, Eli found himself sitting in the back of an ambulance getting his own wounds treated. Nothing serious, cuts and bruises. The paramedic said he was lucky. Eli didn't feel lucky. He felt tired, older than his years, ready for that peace he kept chasing. Mara sat down beside him, Titan's head in her lap. The dog was sedated, his broken leg reset properly this time, wrapped in a professional cast. But even unconscious, he wouldn't leave his handler's side. They're saying he'll make a full recovery, Mara said quietly. The vet says it's a miracle he could even walk on that leg, let alone fight. Said he must love me very much. Dogs understand loyalty better than people. They don't get confused by money or power or ambition. They just know who matters and they protect them, no matter the cost. Sounds like someone else I know. She looked at him. Thank you. For everything, for saving me in the snow, for fighting beside me, for not letting me quit when I wanted to, for... Her voice broke. For shooting my brother before he could shoot me. I'm sorry it came to that. I'm not. He made his choices. He could have stopped at any point, could have chosen family over profit. But he didn't. And you did what had to be done. She wiped her eyes. The FBI says they're going to dismantle the entire network. Every connection Corbin had, every deal he made, every agent he corrupted. It's going to be the biggest corruption case in DEA history.
And you'll have to testify at all the trials.
Yeah, I'll be reliving this nightmare for years. Every detail, every betrayal. She scratched behind Titan's ears gently. But at least those people are free now, the ones in the cages. They get their lives back. That's worth something. That's worth everything. They sat in silence for a while, watching the dawn break over the mountains. The storm felt like days ago, but it had only been 36 hours since Eli had found a dying cop and her dog in the snow. 36 hours that had changed everything. What will you do now? Mara asked. Rebuild your cabin? Go back to your quiet life? That's the plan. Though at this point, I'm starting to think quiet isn't in the cards for me. Universe seems to have other ideas. Maybe that's okay. Maybe you're not meant for quiet. Maybe you're meant to stand between evil and innocence, to be the person who doesn't walk away. She leaned her head on his shoulder, exhausted. Silver Ridge County could use a person like that, full time. I'm not a cop. No, you're better. You're a man who does what's right because it's right, not because of a badge or a paycheck or glory, just because it needs doing. She closed her eyes. That's rare, Eli. Don't waste it trying to hide in the woods. He thought about that, about his son Cameron, safe in town, about the cabin he'd build again, stronger this time, about the county that had welcomed him and then showed him its darkness, about all the people who still needed protecting from wolves in sheep's clothing. We'll see, he said finally. For now, let's just focus on surviving the next few days. The investigations, the trials, the aftermath. Then we can worry about the future. Deal. She was almost asleep now, the exhaustion finally catching up. But for the record, if you ever need a partner, you know where to find me. Eli smiled, watching the sun climb higher, burning away the last shadows. Maybe peace wasn't about finding a place where evil couldn't reach you. Maybe it was about building a place where evil knew better than to try. A place protected by people who wouldn't yield, wouldn't compromise, wouldn't let darkness win. He looked at Mara, sleeping against his shoulder despite all the chaos around them, looked at Titan, scarred and broken, but still loyal. Looked at Santos, giving his statement to FBI agents with the earnest intensity of someone who still believed in justice. Good people. Broken by what they'd faced, but not defeated. Still standing, still fighting. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that's all any of them could do. Stand when others fell, fight when others fled. Hold the line against the darkness and trust that dawn would come eventually. The quiet place he'd been searching for wasn't a location or a moment. It was a choice. The choice to protect, to serve, to be someone who could be counted on when everything went to hell. He'd found that place. Not in the calm, but in the storm. Not in solitude, but in standing with others who refused to break. And as the first responders continued their work, as justice began its slow grind forward, as Silver Ridge County started the long process of healing from its wounds, Eli Mercer made his choice. He'd rebuild his cabin, raise his son, live his life, but he'd also be ready for the next call, the next person dying in the snow, the next time evil came knocking and someone needed to answer, because that's what warriors did. They held the line. They protected the quiet places. They stood between civilization and chaos, not because they wanted to, but because someone had to. And Eli Mercer had never been good at walking away from people who needed him. The storm had passed, the battle was won, but the war against corruption and evil would continue. Tomorrow, next week, next year. And when it came, he'd be ready. With his rifle, his resolve, and the certainty that some things were worth fighting for, no matter what it cost. 3 weeks after the siege at Silver Point Mine, Eli stood in the clearing where his cabin had been, watching the first walls of the new structure rise against the morning sky. The foundation was stronger this time. Reinforced concrete instead of simple posts. The frame was steel core timber, built to withstand more than weather. He was building a fortress disguised as a home, and he wasn't ashamed of it. The world had taught him that peace required preparation. Cameron was beside him, holding a hammer that was too big for his 8-year-old hands, but insisting on helping anyway. "Dad, when can I have my room back?" "Another week, maybe 2.
Depends on how fast we work. Eli ruffled his son's hair. You doing okay at Grandma's? It's fine, but I miss home. I miss our mountain. Cameron looked up at him with eyes that were far too understanding for his age. Grandma says you saved a lot of people, that you're a hero. Grandma talks too much. Are you a hero? Eli knelt down to his son's level. I did what needed doing, same as anyone would. But not everyone does it. That's what makes it special. Cameron hugged him suddenly, fiercely. I'm glad you came back. When Grandma told me the cabin burned down, I thought maybe you didn't make it out. I'm hard to get rid of. Your mom used to say that. Eli held his son close, feeling the weight of what could have been. If things had gone differently at the mine, Cameron would be an orphan. That thought haunted him more than any of the violence. I'll always come back to you, buddy. Always. That's a promise. Okay. Cameron pulled back, wiping his eyes quickly. Can I go help Mr. Santos with the roof? Stay where I can see you, and wear your hard hat. The boy ran off toward where Santos was working with a crew of volunteers. The young deputy had taken a week of leave to help with the rebuild, along with what seemed like half the county. Word had spread about what happened at the mine. The newspapers were calling it the biggest corruption scandal in state history. The TV news had camped out in Silver Ridge for days, interviewing anyone connected to the case. But more than that, people had heard about the civilian who'd fought alongside law enforcement, the veteran who'd lost his home protecting a detective and her dog, the man who'd asked for nothing but given everything, so they came. Contractors donated materials, neighbors donated labor. The local hardware store provided tools at cost. Even people Eli had never met showed up with thermoses of coffee and sandwiches, wanting to help rebuild what had been lost in service of justice. It was overwhelming and humbling, and exactly the kind of community Eli had been looking for when he moved to Silver Ridge County. Your son's got a good swing with that hammer, a voice said behind him. Eli turned to see Brenna Locke approaching, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She'd been out here almost every day, taking time from her ranger duties to help. Reminds me of you, determined, focused, won't quit until the job's done right. He's a good kid, better than I deserve. Eli accepted the coffee gratefully. How's the Forest Service investigation going? Wrapping up? We've identified 17 illegal dumping sites, 12 unauthorized structures, and enough environmental violations to keep lawyers busy for years. Brenna sipped her coffee, looking satisfied. The mountain vipers treated federal land like their personal playground, cost the government millions in cleanup, but at least now we can fix it. And your career? Any blowback from helping us? The opposite, actually. They're promoting me, making me the district supervisor. Apparently risking your life to stop a trafficking ring looks good on a performance review. She smiled, but there was something else in her expression, something more personal. I'm also starting a new project, Wildlife Rescue and Rehabilitation Center, for animals that get caught in the crossfire of human stupidity. Thought maybe Titan could be the first success story. Show people that broken things can heal if you give them a chance. That's a good project. Important. Eli watched Cameron working alongside Santos, the two of them laughing about something. You're building something that matters, something that'll last long after we're gone. We all are. You with your cabin, me with the rescue center, Detective Vance with her testimony, Deputy Santos with his career. Brenna looked at him directly. We're building a better version of Silver Ridge County, one that doesn't tolerate corruption, one that protects the vulnerable instead of exploiting them. That's worth celebrating. Before Eli could respond, a vehicle pulled into the clearing, a familiar black SUV with government plates. Mara emerged from the driver's side, moving easier now than she had 3 weeks ago. The bruises had faded from her face. The exhaustion had lifted from her eyes. She was wearing civilian clothes instead of her uniform, jeans and a flannel shirt that made her look younger, less haunted. Titan jumped out of the passenger side, his cast replaced with a support brace. The shepherd still limped slightly, but he was mobile, alert, and immediately made his way to Cameron. The boy and the dog had formed a bond during the investigation's aftermath, spending hours together while the adults dealt with federal agents and prosecutors. Morning, Mara called out. Brought donuts, figured the crew could use some sugar. You're a saint, Santos shouted from the roof. Glazed? Glazed, chocolate, apple fritters. I bought out the bakery. Mara set the boxes on a makeshift table made from sawhorses and plywood. How's the build coming? Ahead of schedule. Should be weatherproof before the next storm. Eli joined her at the table. How are you holding up? Big day tomorrow. Tomorrow was Corbin's arraignment, the first of many court appearances that would dominate Mara's life for the foreseeable future. She'd be testifying against her own brother, detailing his crimes, putting him away forever. The press would be there. The public would be watching. It would be brutal. I'm ready. Mara's voice was steady, but Eli could see the tension in her shoulders. My therapist says I need to view this as closure, as the final act of justice for everyone Corbin hurt, that it's not about revenge or betrayal, it's about accountability. Your therapist is smart. She better be. The county's paying her enough. Mara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The FBI finished their investigation into Corbin's network. 37 people arrested, 11 of them in law enforcement, 5 federal agents, 4 state troopers, 2 judges. The corruption went deeper than anyone imagined. But you exposed it. You pulled the thread that unraveled everything. We exposed it. You, me, Santos, Brenna. We all played a part. She watched Titan playing with Cameron, the dog moving carefully but joyfully. Sterling's talking too, trying to reduce his sentence. He's given up bank accounts, safe houses, contacts in 6 states. The Mountain Vipers are finished. The organization's completely dismantled. What about the victims, the people who were trafficked? 23 rescued from the mine that night. FBI found another 47 in safe houses across 3 states. Most of them are in witness protection now, getting counseling, being reunited with families when possible. Mara's expression softened. I got a letter last week from one of the women we saved. She has a daughter, 3 years old. She said I gave her back her life. That because of what we did, her daughter still has a mother. Her voice broke on the last word. Eli pulled her into a hug, letting her cry against his shoulder. She held on tight, releasing weeks of tension and trauma and grief. The rest of the work crew pretended not to notice, giving them privacy in the midst of the construction chaos. You did good, Eli said quietly. Real good. No matter what comes next, no matter how hard the trials get, remember that. You saved lives. You made a difference. Nothing can take that away. I know. It's just, some days I wake up and I can't believe it was my brother, my hero, the person I trusted most in the world. And he was the monster all along. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. How do you move past that? How do you trust anyone again? You start small. You trust the people who've proven themselves. Santos, Brenna, me. You build from there, and eventually the good experiences outnumber the bad ones. The trust comes back. Different than before. More careful, but real. Is that what you did? After the military? Still doing it, every day. It's a process, not a destination. Eli handed her a napkin from the donut box. But I'm further along than I used to be. Mostly because people in this county gave me a chance. Showed me that not everyone's corrupt. Not everyone's looking for an angle. Some people are just good. Mara nodded, composing herself. Speaking of good people, I have something for you. She walked back to her SUV and returned with a framed certificate. The county commissioners wanted to present this at a public ceremony, but I told them you'd hate that. So I'm giving it to you privately. It's a civilian commendation for extraordinary courage and service to the community. Comes with a small monetary award, enough to help with rebuilding costs. Eli took the frame, reading the formal language that praised his actions during the investigation. It felt strange being honored for doing what any decent person should do. This isn't necessary. Yes, it is. Not for you, for everyone else. They need to see that courage gets recognized, that doing the right thing matters, that heroes exist outside of movies and comic books. She smiled. Humor us. Let us say thank you properly. Okay, thank you. He set the frame aside. What about you? What's next for Detective Mara Vance? The department offered me a promotion, Detective Sergeant, but I turned it down. Eli raised an eyebrow. Why? Because the department's still cleaning house. New sheriff coming in next month. Complete restructuring. Investigations into everyone Sterling and Corbin worked with. It's going to be chaos for a while. And I realized I don't want to be part of that rebuild, not right now. She looked around the clearing at the cabin taking shape. I need time. Time to heal. Time to figure out who I am without my brother's shadow. Time to remember why I became a cop in the first place. So what will you do? I'm taking a leave of absence. 6 months, maybe a year. The FBI's offered me a consulting position, working with their human trafficking task force, using my experience to identify patterns, train agents, help rescue operations. It's good work, important work, and it lets me step away from Silver Ridge for a while without abandoning the fight. That sounds perfect for you. I hope so. She looked at him with an expression that was part gratitude, part something more. I was hoping, when I come back, maybe we could get that dinner you promised, the one where we actually talk instead of getting shot at. I'd like that, as long as you promise no federal investigations for at least the first course. Deal, though I can't promise anything after dessert. Trouble seems to follow me. Seems to follow both of us. Eli smiled. But maybe that's okay. Maybe trouble knows we're the ones who'll actually do something about it. They stood together, watching the work continue around them. Cameron and Titan were playing fetch now, the boy throwing sticks that the dog retrieved carefully, protecting his healing leg. Santos was directing volunteers on the roof installation, his confidence growing with each successful decision. Brenna was helping mark out where the porch would go, planning sight lines and defensive angles without even realizing it. A community building something new from the ashes of what was lost. Broken people finding purpose in reconstruction. It was imperfect and messy and exactly what hope looked like in the real world. The next few weeks passed in a blur of construction and court appearances. Eli worked on his cabin during the day, making slow but steady progress. Cameron came out every weekend helping where he could, slowly reclaiming ownership of the mountain that had become dangerous. The boy was resilient, bouncing back faster than Eli expected. Kids were like that sometimes. Bendable instead of breakable. Mara testified at Corbin's arraignment, her voice steady as she detailed her brother's crimes. The courtroom was packed. Media everywhere. But she never wavered, never let emotion compromise her testimony. Corbin sat in orange prison scrubs, watching his sister destroy him with facts and evidence. When it was over, when the judge ordered him held without bail, Mara walked out with her head high. She'd done what needed doing, found justice even when it hurt. Sterling's trial started 2 weeks later. This one was faster. He'd cut a deal, agreeing to testify against dozens of co-conspirators in exchange for 30 years instead of life without parole. The judge accepted reluctantly, acknowledging that Sterling's cooperation was dismantling criminal networks across 3 states. Mara attended every day of the proceedings, taking notes, memorizing faces of everyone connected to the conspiracy, building her knowledge for the FBI work that awaited her. Santos was formally promoted to detective, the youngest in the department's history. The new sheriff, a woman named Helen Ortiz, who transferred in from Denver with a reputation for zero tolerance of corruption, personally pinned his badge. She was rebuilding the department from the ground up, hiring new faces, implementing oversight systems, making it clear that the old way of doing business was dead. The county was getting a fresh start, a clean slate, a chance to be what it should have been all along. Brenna's Wildlife Rescue Center broke ground on county land donated by a local rancher who'd been horrified by the trafficking revelations. She was raising funds, recruiting volunteers, planning programs for injured animals and traumatized kids alike. Titan was going to be the center's mascot once he fully healed, a symbol of resilience and recovery. The community embraced the project immediately, seeing it as a way to heal from the darkness that had infected their home. And through it all, Eli kept building. His cabin took shape, stronger and more solid than the original. He installed security systems and reinforced doors, created fallback positions and escape routes, made it clear that anyone threatening his family would face a prepared defense. But he also made it warm, welcoming, a real home instead of a bunker. Because fear wasn't how you built a life. Readiness was. 6 weeks after the siege, on a clear autumn morning, Eli stood on his new porch and watched the sun rise over the mountains. The cabin was finished. Furniture moved in. Cameron's room ready for his return. It was time to reclaim normalcy, to try again for that quiet life he'd been chasing. Cameron burst through the door, already dressed, backpack ready. Can Titan come visit today? Detective Vance said she's dropping him off before her flight to Washington. Of course. This is Titan's mountain as much as ours. He's always welcome. Eli smiled at his son's excitement. But remember, he's still healing. Gentle play only. I know, Dad. I'm always gentle with him. He's my friend. The simplicity of childhood friendship, the purity of it. Eli envied that sometimes, the way kids could form bonds without complications or ulterior motives, just genuine connection based on mutual affection. Mara arrived an hour later, Titan riding shotgun as always. The shepherd jumped out eagerly, his limp barely noticeable now. The vet had said he'd have full mobility within another month, that the leg had healed clean, that dogs like Titan were too stubborn to let something like a broken bone slow them down permanently. Last visit before I leave, Mara said, releasing Titan to run with Cameron into the forest. I wanted to see the finished cabin and to say goodbye properly. You're not dying, you're just going to Washington for a few months. But Eli understood the sentiment. Everything was changing. The team that had fought together was dispersing, returning to their separate lives. It felt like the end of something important, even though logic said it was actually a beginning. Mara walked through the cabin slowly, taking in every detail. The open living space with the large stone fireplace, the kitchen with windows overlooking the forest, Cameron's room decorated with posters of superheroes and mountain landscapes, and the guest room kept ready for visitors who might need shelter from their own storms. It's perfect, she said finally. Better than the original. Warmer somehow. Like you learned something from the burning and rebuilt with that knowledge. That's exactly what I did. Loss teaches you what really matters. The first cabin was about escaping. This one's about belonging. Eli gestured at the mountains visible through the windows. I came here looking for peace, running from the war, from the violence, from the person I'd become. But I was looking in the wrong place. Peace isn't about finding a spot where evil can't reach you. It's about building a life worth defending, worth fighting for when the darkness comes. You found it then, your peace. I'm making it, day by day, board by board, decision by decision. He looked at her. What about you? Have you found what you're looking for? Not yet, but I'm getting closer. The FBI work will help. Working with survivors, catching traffickers, making a real difference beyond one county. That's meaningful. That's purpose. She paused. And when I come back, when I've done what I need to do, maybe I'll find my peace here too. If there's still room in Silver Ridge for a former detective with trust issues and a hero complex. There's always room for people who stand up when others sit down, who fight when others flee. This county learned that lesson the hard way. We won't forget it. Eli moved to the fireplace, running his hand over the stone mantle. You'll always have a place here, Mara. Always. That's a promise. They went outside where Cameron and Titan were playing in the clearing. The boy was teaching the dog new tricks, patient and encouraging even when Titan got confused. The shepherd was trying his best, tail wagging, clearly enjoying the attention. It was a perfect moment, simple and pure and exactly what they'd all been fighting to protect. Santos and Brenna arrived together an hour later, bringing lunch from town. They'd become friends during the investigation, bonding over shared trauma and the discovery that they worked well together. There were rumors around town that it was becoming more than friendship, but neither confirmed nor denied. They were taking things slow, figuring out what they wanted without pressure or expectations. They ate on the new porch, trading stories and laughter, carefully avoiding the darkness that had brought them together. This was about looking forward, not back. About celebrating what they'd built instead of mourning what had been lost. I have news, Santos announced between bites of sandwich. Sheriff Ortiz is creating a special unit, anti-corruption task force, internal affairs with actual teeth. She wants me to lead it. That's incredible, Mara said. But are you ready for that? It's a lot of responsibility. You'll be investigating your own colleagues. I know, but that's exactly why it matters. Sterling and Corbin got away with corruption for years because nobody was watching the watchers. That can't happen again. Someone needs to be the check on power. Might as well be someone who knows what it costs when that check fails. Santos looked determined. I'm ready, and I'll have support. Sheriff Ortiz is bringing in oversight from the state attorney general's office, creating transparency protocols, making it impossible for another corrupt network to take root. The county's lucky to have you, Eli said. Both of you. Building something better from the ruins of what was. That takes courage. We learned from the best, Brenna raised her glass of iced tea. To Eli Mercer, who taught us that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they refuse to look away from evil. To Mara Vance, Santos added, who showed us that integrity matters more than loyalty when loyalty becomes corruption. To Titan, Cameron piped up, making everyone laugh. Who's the goodest boy and the bravest dog ever? They clinked glasses, a makeshift toast to survival and justice and the future they were building together. It wasn't perfect. The scars remained. The trauma would take years to fully process. But they were healing, moving forward, choosing hope over despair. The afternoon stretched into evening. The group talked and laughed and slowly, carefully, became something more than survivors. They became friends, a chosen family forged in fire and tested by darkness. The kind of bonds that would last lifetimes. As the sun started to set, painting the mountains in gold and amber, Mara stood to leave. Her flight was early the next morning. She needed to get back to town, finish packing, prepare for the next chapter of her life. Titan didn't want to go. The dog sat next to Cameron, looking between the boy and Mara with conflicted loyalty. He loved his handler, but he'd also found something here. A kid who needed him. A place that felt safe. You know, Mara said slowly, the FBI work is going to involve a lot of travel. Hotels, long days away. That's hard on a dog, especially one still recovering from injuries. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Eli asked. I'm saying maybe Titan should stay here, with Cameron, just for a while, just until I get settled. She knelt down, scratching the shepherd behind his ears. Would you like that, boy? Staying on the mountain with your friend? Running in the forest? Having someone who needs you as much as you need them? Titan's tail wagged. Then he licked Mara's face and walked back to Cameron, making his choice clear. He can stay, Cameron said, his voice filled with wonder. Really? Really? But you have to take care of him, walk him, feed him, make sure he doesn't overdo it on that leg. Can you handle that responsibility? Yes, I promise I'll be the best dog owner ever. Cameron hugged Titan fiercely. The dog tolerated it with patient dignity, clearly understanding he'd just found a new purpose. Mara stood, wiping her eyes. Take care of each other, both of you, and when I come back, I expect him to know all kinds of new tricks. We'll teach him everything, Cameron promised. After Mara left, after Brenna and Santos said their goodbyes and drove back to town, after Cameron and Titan were asleep in their respective beds, Eli stood on his porch one last time. The night was clear, stars brilliant overhead, the forest quiet except for the gentle sounds of nocturnal animals going about their business. He'd come to Silver Ridge County looking for peace, for an escape from the violence and chaos of his military life, for a place where his son could grow up safe and innocent. Instead, he'd found war waiting for him. Corruption and trafficking and evil wearing badges and hiding behind authority. But he'd also found something else. He'd found people worth fighting for. A community worth defending. A purpose that went beyond just surviving day to day. He'd found meaning in the struggle, connection in the chaos, family in the fellowship of people who refused to yield to darkness. The quiet place he'd been searching for wasn't a location or a moment. It wasn't about finding somewhere evil couldn't reach. It was about creating something evil couldn't destroy. Building relationships strong enough to withstand corruption, values deep enough to guide you through moral complexity, courage sufficient to stand up when standing up mattered most. Peace wasn't found. It was made, deliberately, carefully, through daily choices to protect instead of harm, to build instead of destroy, to connect instead of isolate. He'd made his peace here, in this cabin, on this mountain, with these people. It wasn't the peace of absence, no conflict, no struggle, no challenges. It was the peace of purpose, of knowing what mattered and fighting for it, of standing at the edge of chaos and holding the line. Eli Mercer had spent 8 years as a Navy SEAL learning how to wage war. Now he was learning something harder, how to wage peace, how to build a life worth defending, how how to be someone his son could look up to without shame or qualification. The journey wasn't over. There would be more darkness, more evil looking for cracks to exploit, more people who needed protecting from those who should have been protectors. That was the nature of the world, light and shadow in eternal struggle. But Eli was ready now, not just prepared with weapons and tactics, ready in his soul, ready to stand, ready to fight, ready to protect the quiet places where good people tried to live good lives. He went inside, locking the door behind him, checked on Cameron one last time, finding his son asleep with one arm around Titan. The dog opened one eye, acknowledged Eli's presence, then went back to sleep. Guardian and protected, as it should be. Eli climbed into his own bed, exhausted but satisfied. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more construction on other people's lives, more healing from shared trauma, more work building the county into what it should be. The journey continued. The work never ended. But tonight, in this moment, there was peace, hard-won and deliberate, made from the ashes of what was burned and the courage of people who refused to quit. Not perfect peace, not permanent peace, but real peace, the kind that mattered. The storm had brought them together. The battle had forged them into something stronger. And now, finally, they could rest. Not because the war was over, but because they'd learned how to fight it without losing themselves in the process. The quiet place had been made. Here in Silver Ridge County, here in this cabin on the mountain, here in the hearts of people who chose hope over despair, justice over corruption, courage over fear. And Eli Mercer, warrior who'd come home searching for peace, had finally found it. Not in the absence of conflict, but in the presence of purpose. Not in running from darkness, but in standing against it. Not in isolation, but in community. The storm was over. The dawn had come. And in the quiet morning light, Silver Ridge County began again. Cleaner, stronger, better. A place worth protecting, a home worth fighting for. A quiet place made from blood and courage and the unbreakable determination of ordinary people who became extraordinary when they needed to be. Peace wasn't found. It was made. Board by board, choice by choice, stand by stand, and it would hold. As long as people like Eli, Mara, Santos, and Brenna remained. As long as communities refused to accept corruption as normal. As long as someone stood at the wall between civilization and chaos, refusing to yield. The quiet place had been made, and it would endure. Because that's what good people did when evil came calling. They built something worth defending. And then they defended it, no matter the cost, no matter how long it took, no matter what darkness lay ahead. They stood. They fought. They made peace instead of waiting for it to find them. And in the making, they became heroes. Not because they wore capes or had superpowers, but because they refused to look away when looking away would have been easier. They were ordinary people who did extraordinary things, and in doing them, they changed everything. The story that began with a man finding a dying cop in the snow had become something more, a testament to courage, a celebration of resilience, a reminder that darkness only wins when good people do nothing. And in Silver Ridge County, good people had decided to do something, together. United by shared trauma and collective determination to build something better from the ruins of what corruption had destroyed. The quiet place had been made, the war had been won. Not through violence alone, but through the hard work of choosing right over easy, justice over convenience, courage over comfort. And as Eli drifted off to sleep, secure in his fortress home, surrounded by people who'd become family, he finally understood what peace really meant. It meant having something worth fighting for, and people worth standing beside when the fight came. It meant being ready, being watchful, being willing, but most of all, it meant being home. Finally, completely. In the quiet place he'd made from storm and struggle and the unshakable belief that good could triumph if good people refused to quit. The end and the beginning. Because every ending was just another chance to start building something better. And Eli Mercer, veteran and protector and father and friend, was exactly where he needed to be. Home.